content of this channel is for mature audiences. Parental discretion is advised. You're tuned in to the Green Gorilla channel. Please make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell notification button. And please, feel free to share the video. Thank you.
What's good, everybody? I'm GG, man, and you're tuned in to the Green Gorilla channel, the place where black men can express themselves freely, straight up with no chasers, man. Now, before I get things started, man, like I always do, I want to give a shout out to all the haters. What's good, haters, man? How y'all doing, man? I hope y'all having a pleasant evening or afternoon, whatever the case may be. And, you know, if you're just not getting in, man, make sure that you like the video, man. Subscribe to the channel and hit the bell notification button. Straight up. And also, man, you know, I always like to give a shout out to all the members of the Green Gorilla channel, people who help me to keep the thing going. I know I haven't been going as often as I usually go, but, you know, hey, I go when I go. But thank you for helping me stay in business, man, and to keep the thing alive. You understand? So shout out to Show Me, Rogish Son, Kyle J. Sura, Michael Ross, Brian Peaks, Papa Didas, Roderick Jackson, Scott Haywood, Blackswood 404, Black Uhuru Strikes, Dr. Thunder, Dr. Tree, Rais Muajid, Honeycut L, The Thinker, Broken Blade, Javon Thompson, Life of Commerce, Super Tech, Waffle Weave, and Kisses from Afar. Big up to y'all. Big up to 77 Base X, Brian McMurray, Apex Prowler, Karan S, Anthony Davis, BGS Ibmore, Professor Carlton Jones, Artisan MC, Damon Brown, Downhill 360, Herbert Lewis, and Seven Coast Dojo. Big up. Big up to Pulpit 28, Charles Rogers, B. Hillfire, Rick Ross, Sandra Jean 955, Brotherly Love 215, Charles Gilmore 3, Patricia Colley, 7Q Pit, Kwaku Asasi, and Tahuti. Big up. Big up to Greg, Barry Little, Alan Wiley, Mr. Valentino, Jason Hales, Black Men Being Brutally Honest, Omni Americana, Cameron 87, Deshaun Nolly, Nelso, and Kareen Not Karen. Big up. Big up to Doc LaRock, J. Charles, Mark Holt, Lee Ways, Jeffrey Speed, The Face, Mark Swift, Odd Collard, Donald Watts, hiphop.catv, and Coach DC. Big up. Big up to Kashif Caldwell, Nichita, Mr. Blue Collar, Barnolas, I'm Just Jules, TD Hip Hop Media, Drew Main, Mr. Heat, Sir Anthony, and ML Law. Big up. Big up to Universal 178, Rashid Barnes, Aaron Smith, DH, C-Truth the Revelator, Gold Professor, Aaron Infinite, Kalan Jakala, Ricky Dawson, Cedric Bowman, True 7360, BK Born Shaheed, James Washington, Hostile Adept, W. Para 1, Marvin Battle Jr., and I can't forget my brother in heaven, Forrest Windu. Big up. And on the Patreon side, I'd like to give a shout out to Kevin Marchbank Owens, William Joyner, Javon Thompson, Tyrone Hampton, Jules Winfield, Excalibur, Jason Warren, Anu219, Pursuer Prisoner, Taz, Dragon 59, Supreme Ibmore, Adrian Hicks, Jay Bailey, Mr. Michi, Momal, and Asangwa. Big up to y'all, man. Big up to y'all, man. Y'all deserve a round of applause for the cause. Thank you so much for supporting GG, man, over the past year and a half or so, man. And, you know, hey, man, I'm still, you know, doing what I do. Still trying to put content together here and there, man. And I'll continue to do that. If you got any suggestions, man, you want me to cover some material, man, let me know, man, in the chat or in the comments section. I do go back from time to time and look at some of the comments. So if there's something that, you know, you feel that I need to cover that I haven't, just let me know. You know, and if you want to become a member of the Green Gorilla channel and you want us to show some support that way, man, here's how you do it.
What's good, everybody? I'm the G with a PhD,
and you're tuned in to the Green Gorilla channel, the place where black men can express themselves freely, straight up, no chaser. Today, I want to introduce you to my new membership program that consists of 5 levels where you can invest in the Green Gorilla channel on a monthly basis and receive level-specific perks. Memberships are special because they improve the quality of the content of the channel and will help me to be able to keep the channel going. Now, to participate in the Green Gorilla channel membership program, all you have to do is hit the join button, which is located right next to the subscribe button on my channel page. Now, for all of my subscribers who decide not to participate in my membership program, nothing will change. The content will keep coming the way it always has. Thanks for watching, and be careful out here, people. Bless. All right, y'all, we back, man. And, of course, I got a guest with me today. Goes by the name of Dr. T. Hasan Johnson. What's good with you, Brother Johnson, man? What's happening with you, bro?
I'm good, man. What's the word?
Man, Johannesburg. You got to be old school to know that. They say, what's the word, Johannesburg? How you doing, brother?
I'm doing good, man. I'm excited, man. You know why?
Yeah, because we about to drop some gems on them, man. You know, some old school gems on them.
Man, Gigi be mining gold, y'all. I'm telling you.
Hey, man, I did get out the woodworks, it's like I'm an old DJ, man. You know, used to go to the record stores and find those beats, those break records, man. That, it's like digging, in those record crates, man, coming up with those gems, those jewels.
That's right.
But I want to give a shout out to all the people out there in the chat. BGS Sipmore, big up to you, brother. How you doing, man? Right. Abuki Cabal, what's good with you, man? No One, Carlos Jones, and a lot of other good people out there in the chat, man. The Sower of Seed, Show Me, Kiam Kwali, and Fife Life, The Thinker. So, big up to y'all, man. You could be anywhere on this Friday night, but you're here with me at the current moment. All 65 of us at the current moment. And make sure you like the video, man. Make sure you like the video. Make sure, if you haven't already, to subscribe to the channel. And big up to Miguelito69. Big up to him. Look, so for the most part, what we want to do is show you a video that we found. Well, that I found, but that we both find very interesting. And it's just indicative of the fact that the kind of conversations that we're having right now in the manosphere really are nothing new.
Right.
These kind of conversations that we've had, they've been going on for decades. But the unfortunate part of it, though, is that even though these conversations have been had in the past, and they're happening now, on YouTube to some extent, they used to happen in more formal spaces.
Mm-hmm.
More, and I don't want to, say that YouTube is not reputable or social media is not reputable, but it doesn't carry the same kind of weight and gravity that you would get in different sorts of fora. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So say, for example, a nationally syndicated talk show where you can get people from one group who has a position, another group who has a position. They sit there for 30 minutes or maybe an hour, and they hash out their views, and they talk about what their differences are, and they debate with one another, and they have an exchange. But at the current moment, it just seems like to me there is no exchange.
Mm.
I mean, there is an exchange, but it's a one-sided exchange.
Mm.
So what do you think about that?
No, I mean, I hear you. I think part of the issue is that there's so much frustration on both sides of this that there's a lot of clarity that we have difficulty getting to. But part of the reason is that we've had 40 years of a one-sided conversation, and the only people that have had license, the only brothers really that have had license to voice their disapproval, which is still very recent, are not necessarily in the academy. They're not necessarily running for office. So it comes from a very raw, straightforward place. And a lot of people are uncomfortable with that raw voice, and so that's kind of part of the issue. People want to conflate the rawness with somehow this idea that black men are incapable of thinking, incapable of working issues out, so on and so forth. So just hearing brothers articulate what the issues are, you have people that'll dismiss it because it doesn't come from some kind of pristine and clean kind of space with a very rarefied language, and that's a problem for folks. So
And but that's just disingenuous to me from the beginning, and I'll tell you why.
right.
I mean, they have a whole philosophical argument about tone policing and about how tone policing is a marginalization technique to basically create semantic noise, or not necessarily semantic noise, but just to exclude people from the conversation.
Right.
It's a form of epistemic injustice.
Mm-hmm.
And epistemic injustice is a fancy philosophical term developed by a woman by the name of Miranda Fricker. Okay, but that's neither here nor there. But the point is, if tone policing is wrong for them, and that's one of the woke mob's tactics, right? I mean, they say you can't tone police me. If I'm angry, I ought to be able to vent and to express myself
Mm-hmm.
in any way that I want to,
Right.
as long as I'm being genuine and articulating those frustrations, right? But what typically tends to happen to people like us is it just gets typecast as misogynist or regressive or some other negative epithet.
Well,
You know,
and the interesting part of it too is what happens to black men if we express anger in public. What happens?
yeah. Well, you already know. I mean, people call the police.
Absolutely. So it's interesting that even even on a whether we're talking even over YouTube, even over the internet, for us to express anger, it's still a problem. It still scares people to the degree that we have to be tone police as far as they're concerned and silenced altogether in many respects. And until at least we're able to do so in an uncontrolled space, and then people have to figure out how to make that space as controlled as possible as soon as possible. So it's just interesting to me.
Well, I wanted to do a show, and I think I'll do this maybe next week, about what some academicians have said about the manosphere, because they've already weighed in
Right.
on what they think the manosphere is about, and they've written like articles in journals about the manosphere. And but brothers don't know this, okay? But primarily, these articles are written in order to make some sort of statement about what they consider to be the norms and the value systems of the white manosphere. Okay, so the black manosphere they haven't really touched on yet, but some of the things that white men have in terms of being males in a society that's progressive as it is, if you want to call it that, some of the issues that they have are some of the same issues we have. Okay, and but it's easy to attack white men and to make them some sort of pariah, more so than it is black men. But black men have their own issues related to stereotyping, typecasting, and stigmatization. But I mean, they can't charge us with racism. Okay, that's one thing that is very difficult for people to be able to do, is to say that black men are racist.
Right.
Okay, so what they've done is they've basically said that the white manosphere is sexist, misogynist, patriarchal jerks who want things to be the way that they were. And the reality of the situation is that as black men, man, we have a whole different outlook on the world than white men.
Right.
Okay, especially as it pertains to politics and in the culture in which we live. We don't have the same viewpoint of white guys. We don't have the same experiences as white guys. Okay, but I don't want to keep on pushing with this conversation too long, because we got a video to watch, and it's about 20 minutes long, and so we'll be pausing and making statements as we watch the video. But I mean it's just like we have to be able to say what we have to say. And sometimes it comes unfiltered, it comes uncut, it comes, it comes out and it might sound harsh. And, I think that, they've created so many safe havens and safe spaces contemporarily that, no, I'm serious. And it's primarily the academy and corporations who've done this. Right. And so, my viewpoint is, I don't know if you've ever, thank you, Anthony Davis, and thank you, Michael Johnston, for your cash out. But I don't know if you've ever read a book about the academy and its connection to slavery, all the Ivy League institutions, or have you heard about that book?
I've heard about it. I haven't checked it out yet.
Yeah, so I haven't read it myself, but I mean, there's a brother who wrote a book about how all of the major academic institutions in this nation were bankrolled with slave money. Harvard, Yale, Princeton, all of those institutions were funded and endowed with dirty money, money that came from the extracted labor of black folks, primarily black men. Okay, and then not only that, you have the academy, who basically they've created diversity and inclusion departments, not departments, but offices, right? Where you have administrators, and there's a select group of people who are allowed to be in these positions, right, in these offices, or to be directors of such offices. Now, have you ever heard of or seen a black man run one of these offices, bro?
You mean which
diversity and inclusion, bro?
No. Well, I'll put it this way. I've never seen a straight black man run one of these offices. No.
There you go. Because now you have to qualify it because of the whole intersectionality thing, which, by the way, I think has two phases: a distributive and a retributive horn. And I think that in this retributive phase, intersectionality is an apology to basically get black men locked up. That's just my opinion. Okay. It's just, there you go, Darth Vader, Ebony and Ivy. No, well, I thought he came up with the name, but it's a pun, right? But anyway,
well, and shout out to Anthony Davis for the donation.
Yeah, shout out to him. I already shouted him out, but shout out to you, bro. So let's just get on with this, man. So basically, this is and I'm gonna have to piecemeal this because I don't know if it's gonna be a copyright infringement or not. But hey, man, they say that you could review and respond to copyrighted material, and then that will serve as a means by which whatever it is that you're doing can be deemed as fair use. So that's what we're doing. And this is important, right? To understand that these kind of conversations have been chronicled before. And, the only issue I have is, where are these brothers now, man? Like in the academy, like where are the outspoken men? Like the brother we're about to see now. Like, where are they, man?
And there weren't many then, especially who were willing to go public like this. So,
yeah, that's the truth, man. That's the truth. So let me just get to it, man, before I stay stuck on the same thing all day. So let me make sure that the screen is the way that I want it to be. Now they saying do something new when you're trying to hit we got a new way of doing the screen layout. Is that good for you, man? Will that work if I keep you like that?
Oh, I'm good. I'm good either way.
Okay. So let's just check this thing out and we'll comment as we go along. Okay.
In his new book, Reckless Eyeballing, Ishmael Reed's hero shaves the heads of prominent black feminists. These black feminist writers are collaborating with the enemies of black people by perpetuating ugly stereotypes about black men, the hero says. He retaliates by shaving their heads, just as the resistance did to prostitutes who collaborated with the Nazis in France during World War II. In real life, has the black man become the victim of black feminist writers? I've asked myself another question, and you might want to share it. Does the castration of the black male image sell better to white producers and publishers? These are provocative questions. I'm Tony Brown. When we come back, we will discuss, do black feminist writers victimize black men?
Now, let me stop it right there, okay? Now, let me stop it right there. Okay, so look, in case you don't know, this is 1986. Okay, so these kind of conversations are not new. Critiques of black feminism or they're old. Okay, but the unfortunate thing, as we said earlier, these kind of discussions are not occurring anymore in reputable, so-called official spaces. Not to say that there's anything wrong with YouTube. It's just that YouTube doesn't have the kind of gravitas to some of these other spaces are afforded to them. Okay. But I didn't even know, so this brother Ishmael Reed wrote a book, and it was a copycat off a practice that occurred, when the resistance fighters in Germany would shave the heads of prostitutes who were collaborating with those Nazis. That's crazy, man. Like, so these are women that didn't get killed. They didn't get beat up, but they did get, absconded, and they shaved their heads. Like, so we know that's one of them. That's one of them kind. Okay. So, but it's odd because some, I'm pretty sure women now would kind of shriek and say, "Oh, that's so terrible." But as Reed goes on in explaining, some of the things that he does to the women in this book, man, just look at what happens to some of the men in the work of these feminist writers.
Oh man, please.
I mean, I'm just saying. Did you see the thumbnail that I put up?
I did, man. I fell out laughing. I said, man, why you do that?
You see Silly with a knife to Mister's neck?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Now, I mean, but I don't want to get into it right now. But what you got any preliminary thoughts, man?
Well, I'll just say this. When you look at the question being asked, right? Are black feminist writers victimizing black men? And you watch this interview. One of the things to think about is what are the intellectual, I should say the ideological children of both of the people we're talking about on the stage that they'll see momentarily. What is the state of both sets of ideological offspring? And one of the things you'll find is that it's overwhelmingly one-sided in the academy, most especially, but also in terms of pop culture. So you'll see what I mean in a minute, but overwhelmingly one-sided.
But this just goes to show that, and Tony Brown hits the nail on the head, because the other question is, does the white corporate structure and academic structure give sanction to this lambasting and the castration of the black male image? And of course, our answer is a resounding yes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Mm-hmm. They pay black women to lambast black men or to talk about issues, right, that demonize black men. They paid them for that.
Yeah.
$100,000 salaries, bro.
Yep. They're rewarded. Absolutely.
I mean, you're the darling of the academy if you talk about how bad the black man is. I mean, this is, it just is what it is, because I guess they can't come out and say it directly themselves, so they get somebody else, as a proxy to do that kind of work for them. And this is what Reed is kind of discussing,
And it's still happening on television today. It's still happening online. I mean, what's the group that was talking to Cube last week? I always forget their name, that show with Vivica Fox and them. But, you can still see it on television and on the internet now. They are rewarded and financed for how they interpret black male.
But let's go on, man, before we get too far off track. Let's keep it pushing here. You can tell that this is unedited because they don't even have the clap tracks loud.
Ishmael Reed is the author of this new book called Reckless Eyeballing. He feels that some black feminist writers, by projecting negative black male stereotypes in their work, are taking part in a conspiracy to blame black men for male chauvinism. One reviewer calls him, quote, the most revolutionary black novelist who has appeared in print thus far, end of quote. But Barbara Smith, a leading feminist writer, calls him a, quote, notorious misogynist, end of quote. Her writings include, all the women are white, all the blacks are men, but some of us are brave. And another book is Homegirls. Welcome to the program. Ms. Smith, would you define for me misogynist? I must admit, when I read your book, I had to go to the dictionary. Now, you did say that Mr. Reed was a misogynist writer.
Well, this is not the dictionary definition. This is my definition from experience. It's basically a man who doesn't like women, or at least treats women as if he doesn't like them.
Mr. Reed?
Yeah, I don't think anything is served by name calling. First of all, I want to say that the hero of the book, Ian Ball, shaves both the heads of black women and white women. So he's a Democrat in that respect. I don't advocate this, and this fictional hero gets his due in the book if you read the book. As far as being a woman hater, I think there's as much misandry, which is a hatred of men, going around in the world today as there is misogyny. So I think they're, both people, both groups are not exempt from having hostile ideas about one another.
Now let me stop it there. Let me stop it there. What are your initial reflections on that, Doc?
And look how long it took before brothers could actually pick up from where he left off. I mean, publicly, right? He just dropped misandry. He just dropped, the separation between his work and himself. He just challenged her on name calling, which are all still practices that still occur. But we've started to have to do that decades after this. And it's absolutely ridiculous.
Right. And those are my sentiments as well. I mean, the whole point is, how many men grew up knowing that misandry was actually a thing?
Come on, man.
I'm just saying, how many people, who are black males growing up ever heard of the term misandry?
Exactly.
I mean, for that matter, misogyny. But I think that, today, with the woke culture being, the way that it is, you're far more likely to have an understanding of what misogyny is as opposed to having an understanding of what misandry is. Well, go ahead.
No, that's something I usually do. When I give lectures, I actually ask people to raise their hand if they know what misogyny is. And I rarely have a person, especially women, who don't know what it is. But when I ask about misandry, I have yet to get a hand in the air in terms of knowing what that is.
Not one hand, bro.
No. Especially among men. No.
And look, let me just say this though. I'm not the smartest person in the world. I'm not the brightest bulb on the Christmas tree, okay? But I do know that Andry, these people should know, your students should know, etymology to some degree, and to be able to piece together the meaning of words by looking at the roots, but that's just my opinion, bro. But and let me thank some brothers out here, man, who've hit me up, man. Jason Hills, thank you. He says, Dr. Gigi, thank you for showing up to work today. I'm sorry for not being at work, man. I'm gonna make sure, man, that I, hit y'all up more often. I swear I will, man. Mr. Blue Collar, shout out to you as well. Thank you, sir, for your donation. Appreciate that. But here's the thing. Enshrined or interwoven within their politics is insults against men, and black men in particular. But it's theory to them. Mm-hmm. It's not name calling. I'm glad he called that out. It's like, okay, you can call me a misogynist, but what are you? Are you a misandrist? Mm-hmm. I mean, is feminism in and of itself, to some degree, a means by which to conceal people's insidious desire, to see men undergo harm?
And I think it's part and parcel in the very first critique she laid out, in terms of the name calling he pointed out. She called him, a misogynist. And when he said, well, what's the dictionary definition? She said, well, this is my definition. He either doesn't like women or he acts like he doesn't like women. At what point does what he like have anything to do with what we're dealing with. I mean, she didn't talk about anything he said, anything he wrote, any kind of point he made. She just called him something, and like that was a critique. Like that was a worthy critique in an academic engagement.
And but what's even more odd about it is somebody who doesn't like women or who acts like they don't like women. What does that even mean? Like, I mean, in terms of philosophical precision, that is about as nebulous and as non-distinct as you can possibly get. I mean, anything can fit into that category. Like, how do you determine whether or not a person likes one category of people, right, as opposed to not liking them? Like, how do you determine that? Like versus not like, or acting like you like or not like? Like
all that did is suggest he's a bad person. So before we even start the conversation, before we hear anything anybody has to say, he's bad. That's about all she did.
And that's what, in the manosphere, and, Kevin Samuels has made it popular. I don't know if he regards himself as a part of the manosphere anymore, but, that's sign language. It's labeling, it's stereotyping and typecasting and reducing black men's thoughts, ideas, and opinions to something nefarious, as opposed to what women do. Like, I mean, as if, some of the thoughts that they have and the ways that they regard men are not as equally offensive to us as they say that our attitudes and our dispositions are offensive to them, right? So that's just something to think about, right? Let's push forward a little bit.
Let's move to your new book, Reckless Eyeballing. Your hero is a person who is mysterious. I think he's called the Phantom.
The Flower Phantom.
The Flower Phantom.
He leaves a chrysanthemum with his victims. And so in this book, women get off better than, say, black males get off in the books of feminists that I can name, where in one book I can name, I don't want to deal in personalities, a black male is mutilated sexually. In another book, a very famous novel, a black man's mother burns him up. There's no motive for this. And in another book I can name, cruel things happen to black men. In this book, all the violence actually happens to the men. One is murdered, one goes crazy. So I try to be fair in the book, so I don't see how anybody can single this book out and say it's a misogynistic book. But anybody who wears a pair of pants these days, according to people like Barbara Smith, is misogynist.
And look at her face. Look at her face, right? I mean, it's like, like, please. It's like she's blowing them off, right? Like, in other words, what you said is complete BS. But, the other thing that was, that was glaring to me, and maybe you can go back and look at this if you didn't pay attention. When he made mention of the fact that, like, in some of these books, these feminists, kill men, mutilate men, torture men, maim men through violence. One of the women in the audience laughed.
You see that? Yeah.
Like it was funny. She was snickering, like trying to hold it in, like as if, a man undergoing pain is humorous.
Yeah.
But I mean, this is part of our culture. This is part of Western culture. And it's only evolved within the past, 50 to 60 years, I think, where it's acceptable to see men undergo some sort of harm by means of a woman. The gratuitous female slap that you see, so often in movies. Most recently, the harder they fall. Where
right.
I forget the main character's name, the protagonist. I just can't remember it. But the actor that plays in Lovecraft Country, okay,
Jonathan Majors. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he gets slapped by
Zazie, Zazie
whatever her
Beetz.
name is, Zazie Beetz. That's it, Zazie Beetz. He gets slapped by her, and it's like everybody in the the saloon is like, oh, ooh.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Which happens in real life. If you watch some of those videos on YouTube of people going back and forth, like how they stage abuse, where they stage the abuse of women in public by men, and when you see those kind of things acted out, if she hits him, People laugh, they'll crowd around, they'll be entertained, even if he's being assaulted. But if it's the other way around, men will fly from everywhere to tackle him.
And that's crazy. You know, it's crazy. That's something that's new. Okay, this is not something that's like centuries old. This is a new phenomenon. But anyway, look, there's some women I like, and let me just say this: there's some women I don't like. Some men that I like, some men that I don't like. Mm-hmm. But I don't know any man. I'm just being perfectly honest. Who, as a matter of principle, just says, you know, I hate. Just me personally, I just hate them. Just because of who they are, the essence of who they are. I just hate them. Mm-hmm. Like, we might not like what they're doing. we might not like their strategies, right? And the same things that they say about us. We don't like your behavior or whatever the case may be. But I mean, how are you going to say our critiques in and of themselves are reducible to this nefarious hatred? I just don't get it, bro. But
But I think what's important to point out at this juncture is you got Ishmael Reed calling something out that's been normalized at this point. 35 years later, it's normalized. What he said, he was talking about literature. You know what I mean? But how many of us knew that it would become so normalized in popular media that most people don't even think about? If you're watching a movie and a woman hits a man with a weapon, nobody is surprised. Nobody is taken aback. Nobody gasps anymore. None of it. It's accepted. It's expected. So he's calling this out in 1986 as a feature of Black feminist literature. Now it's melded into the mainstream.
But you know what's odd about it is, I think, and I don't want to make an exaggerated hyperbolic claim, but I think that it's possible one could actually draw a connection between the mutilation, the derogation of men on film and in fiction. One could basically point a line and draw it straight to Black feminists. Mm.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, I mean, burning up cars, for cheating or whatever the case may be, or slapping, punching, setting things on fire. And then when you show stuff like this in movies, people begin to act this out in real life. Because sometimes life imitates art. But, hey, man, I don't want to go too far because, we'll talk for hours about one little part.
Can I just add this little piece, though? One of I think where we are right now, where you really see the misandry is in the comments. I don't care if it's a meme, a video clip, or whatever. When you read the comments, that's where you see how deeply this has been internalized and normalized and accepted as what should be the norm. And it's interesting to see and terribly sad at the same time.
Yes, indeed, man. And shout out to Artisan MC, and shout out to Javon Thompson. Also, thank you, Brother Ignance Mouse, for becoming a member of the Green Gorilla channel. Appreciate that. And Brotherly Love 215, shout out to you, and also Barry Little, my man. So let's continue on with this. Okay.
Barbara, your point of view is a feminist point of view. You also make the distinction in one of your books, and I read that there's a distinction between fighting institutionalized chauvinism and individual hatred of men.
Oh, yes, absolutely. I think it's very important to make that distinction. What I'm trying to get at, and what other serious Black women who are political and who call themselves feminists, is just to point to the great inequalities in the society based upon sex and sexual identity. But that doesn't mean that we hate men. I spent very little of my writing career writing hateful things about men. I've written some very positive things about myself as a Black woman and other Black women.
Well, your introduction to Homegirls.
Hold on. So what are your thoughts about that, Doc?
Well, I immediately jumped to the next segment because I'm going to say this. Reed pulls receipts. That's what I love about the brother. And I think he laid out a platform in a way, or a method, that would later be something we brought into black male studies, and even to some extent in the manosphere. He brings receipts for everything he says, which I love. But as far as what she just said, if you listen closely, she didn't say anything about saying anything positive about men. She said, I didn't say, I don't hate men and so on and so forth, but she never said I've said positive things. She didn't say that. You know what I mean? And she kind of had a smirk on her face while she was doing it, because she's aware. She knows that the misandry that he pointed out is real, and it's inculcated in the work. She knows it. Well,
yeah, and so, here's the thing. So a distinction between institutionalized male chauvinism versus individual contempt for men, right? I think that's the distinction that was drawn there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now think about this. And this is something you've written about. And what kind of institutional male chauvinism do black men have direct access to?
Uh-oh.
Especially contemporarily, okay? What? We don't have, if you're talking about a social institution like the family, what sort of power do we have there? When it comes to economic institutions, what kind of power do we have there in order to, exert, or to exhibit, our chauvinism?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Or what other social institutions? Like, I mean, there's only so many: social, economic, and familial. Okay, well, you can regard familial as social, but a kind of private social institution. But which ones?
Well, and
or political institutions rather, as well. Like, which ones?
Well, and shout out to Robert Staples, because he makes that point beautifully. He points out that, whether you're talking about the church, you're talking about the family, talking about, whatever institutions you want to look at in the black community, black men are not in positions of authority. And he's saying this in the late 70s. So he and Ishmael Reed really do lay out an early response to, irrational black feminism that is not, referencing anything empirical to make these arguments. Right. But he said the very same thing you said in, I want to say, like 1979.
Right. I mean, because there's an assumption that, because we're males, that somehow we I guess through osmosis or somehow indirectly benefit from maleness. Now, maybe that it may be true in some instances. I don't know. Okay. It's kind of difficult for me to perceive it and to conceptualize it, based upon my experiences as a black male in the United States, what kind of privileges do black women get in virtue of being women in the United States? I mean,
well, see, and that's real. That's real, because we can look at the data as far as you could take something like police homicide or police abuse, right? Police, physical assault on behalf of police. You're not going to find that black women experience this anywhere near as much as black men. Why? What other distinguishing characteristic differentiates us? And I think your point is valid. I think there is a degree of chivalry that feminists are not interested in pointing out, because that highlights that they benefit from it. So, but when you're talking about black folk and privilege in society, at some point you're going to have to use new concepts like micro privilege, because these are the privilege that we generally, identify are not, they're macro privilege. And black folk don't generally have that to any great extent. The only way you can make an argument that black men have privilege is to deal with these micro instances that are situational and hardly noticeable. But at the end of the day, if you're going to do that with black men, you got to do that with everybody else. And I think what you'll find is that black men are still at the bottom of even what we might call some kind of micro privilege framework, which is ridiculous.
Man, I'm not going to say anymore because I was about to, take it left field. But shout out to Joe from DC. He says, keep up the good work. I miss the animations for donations. Hey, brother, Hey, man, that's for you, brother Joe. And also, man, Ricky Dawson, shout out to him. He says, when YouTube was censoring many channels, was at the same time black male channels started to get more traction of issues with black female privileges. So, yeah. And this is what we're talking about. And, Tony Brown, is aware of this, early on. Any pushback against this political maneuvering on behalf of these black feminists, and they weren't as popular then as they are now. Okay, this is like kind of like the time that they were budding. Okay, like beginning to bloom. Okay, just on the verge of blooming. But I mean, I think that in terms of a strategy, they've for the most part they've done their work.
Well,
I don't know what more they can do.
they've had a lot of support doing it. But what you just said was incredibly important. I want to highlight it real quick. I've been saying this for the last year. People don't understand. When black feminism began to make its way, it was a fairly obscure enterprise amongst a small population of women in the academy, black women in the academy. It was very small, very rare. The only way that it made it into the mainstream was through figures like Oprah and Terry McMillan. Outside of that, it would have stayed an obscure entity in the academy, right? And I want to be clear, who you're looking at here, Barbara Smith, she was one of those rare, strange black feminists in the academy that did not blossom, as you say, until you had Oprah. And I think people need to understand that. This was a process, but it didn't happen just because these women in the academy decided that everybody needed to hear what they had to say. They were ignored for the most part, and they were strange. I mean, it was just kind of some off things, but they quickly became mainstream to the point where women who've never read, Alice Walker even, let alone Bell Hooks, who've never read Barbara Smith, all of a sudden they were using feminist talking points, black feminist talking points that they got through Oprah. But they didn't get it from Barbara Smith directly. Most wouldn't even know who Barbara Smith was.
And that's why it's important for us to show people this stuff, man, because, I'm not the most well-read reader on the planet, as an academician, but, at the same time, I do read, I do know who people are. I do know, I've read some of their work or tangentially have come into contact with it, even through secondary sources.
Right.
So, but it's important for the lay public to know this. Who are these people? And what kind of influence did they have? But you're right. It took Oprah to make, black feminism mainstream. She did that, okay? But who was, the main audience of Oprah?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Who was it?
Right.
White women.
Right.
Mainstream white women are the people that gave Oprah all the money that she has, all the acclaim and all of the, the fame. But also, who were the people behind the scenes that promoted Oprah? I guarantee you, white men. I guarantee you, the people pulling the strings at the network where her show was, reigning supreme, it was white guys who made that be the way that it is.
All I'm going to say is what I said a second ago. Reed pulls receipts, sir.
Let's keep pushing. Yeah, let's keep pushing. I'm sorry for stopping, man. There's so many gems in this joint.
You seem to take position that all the evil in the world comes from men, and women get off.
Dear.
The women
That's
are
not
idealized,
true.
and they're brave, and they're strong.
That's not
and they can
true.
just like that movie, The Color Purple.
It's not just like the movie The Color Purple.
Melodrama where all the women are good and all the men are bad.
But Miss Smith,
simplistic way of looking at
Miss Smith, I also read in your book you were critical of one aspect of The Color Purple. You said that no reviewer had really told the story, had never really identified what The Color Purple was about. What did you mean by that?
Well, I would just like to go back to the comment that was just interjected about, black women being idealized. I think if you read the introduction to Homegirls, which is subtitled A Black Feminist Anthology, carefully, you'll see that I'm opposed to all oppression. So I'm opposed to imperialism. I'm opposed to class oppression. Of course, I'm opposed to racism. I have never, like some white feminists, said that men were the root of all evil, and have even been criticized in the context of the women's movement because I refuse to take that stance.
I think you have intellectual courage to point out the lesbian propaganda features of The Color Purple. I admire you for that, but I do feel that there's a strident attack on black men running throughout your book.
There's a difference between attacking oppression and attacking black men.
Ms. Smith, are you saying that there...
What? What did she just say? There's a difference between attacking oppression and attacking black men. Like, what is that supposed to mean? I'm curious, man. Like, I still have not figured out, like, what does that mean?
It means that we can say whatever we want, and it's not really an attack, even when it is. That's all.
So us going off on black men is not oppression, but your actions in and of itself, as you are tethered to chauvinism or manliness, we can attack that. But it's attacking us. I'm like, what is this, bruh? This is crazy to me. I'm just saying. Look. It's crazy to me. Let me keep pushing though. You got anything else you want to say about this?
Man, nah, go ahead.
Is a what did you say she said about
She said it was a lesbian movie, which is what some of us said. I said, and I couldn't get away with saying.
Is that what you're saying, Ms.
Come down on me, but it's a good thing you said.
Well, I would like to make a distinction as a literary critic and a serious writer between the movie and the book. I mean, the movie, as far as I'm concerned, is a travesty, and the book is a work of art. It's a work of art. And the thing is that the difference between those two entities is very great. I really love the book. It has its problems, like anything done by fallible humans. But the thing is, the movie, I think what we have to look at is...
What makes the book better than the movie?
Well, the book
from a literary point of view.
Well, the book is like, it's well-rounded, it's serious, it has depth, it has any number of nuances. It's very philosophical and very theological, too. Those conversations about what is God, who is he a white man, is it a field of flowers? Those are very deep discussions. And those are discussions that have plagued and, interested the black community for many years. She capsulizes it in authentic black language in the voices of people who are not supposed to be even able to articulate a philosophical thought. And that's, very important. I think the thing to talk about when we're talking about the movie is who produced it. The executive producer of the movie is a black man, Quincy Jones, and the director of the movie is a white man, Steven Spielberg. And all the blame goes on to the author who sold her rights.
That was their choice. They had a meeting, and this brings up conspiratorial aspects. According to Ms. Magazine, which is kind of pushing all this stuff, Gloria Steinem, who has become some kind of modern-day daughter of Dracula, getting victim after victim to carry out her orders. According to Ms. Magazine, they all met, and they decided to take this movie, this property to Hollywood, and they gave it to the biggest purveyor of male chauvinism in Hollywood, Steven Spielberg. Now, I thought they had multicultural awareness. I see some of them lending their names to causes like El Salvador and all that, but the Asian Americans single out Steven Spielberg as a racist in 1984 because of Indiana Jones, who goes around the world punishing third world people and slapping women left and right. There's no black male who's as big a chauvinist as Indiana Jones. Yet they took this property to him, and he made the movie. And what did they expect? I see Steven Spielberg taking all the blame for this, but certainly they had a hand in.
Well, I assure you, I had nothing to do with who produced the movie. I mean, they didn't call me.
But how can you take an act, let's say, as innocent as Feminist taking a script to a producer? How do you associate that with a conspiracy?
Well, it's not innocent in the sense that they lambast the patriarchy and all the buzzwords, and yet they take the movie to a man and didn't even insist that a woman direct this movie or produce this movie.
Maybe they were being democratic.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. Hey, look, let me just say this. You know why they took it to Steven Spielberg?
Right.
Because he was the biggest name in the industry at that time. That's why they took it there, okay? Yes, Quincy Jones was down with it.
Yep.
Okay? Because he produced it. Steven Spielberg directed it. Alice Walker wrote the book, but I don't know who actually wrote the screenplay. I'm pretty sure that Alice Walker didn't write the screenplay. Okay?
But
go ahead.
If you're criticizing patriarchy, but patriarchy is okay when it's useful, what does that mean philosophically? I'm just curious.
Man, it's the politics of strategy. It's the politics of, get whatever it is that you want to get done. Mm-hmm. Right? And, this speaks to the larger issue that, that is, kind of like seething underneath the surface. Namely that, Hollywood is good with this. This is something that Hollywood is good with, and you're willing to offer this up on a plate for black folks to see, for white folks, the world to see, in fact. This is what you're willing to do. to put us on blast and to create this kind of imagery and iconography about us without nuance, without context. It's just basically more of, men are, and he says that this is the movie is a melodrama. Most of the, these fictive feminist writers, they create these melodramas where men are chauvinist, sexist, R-word abusers, and the women are all Pippi Longstocking, like, little innocent fairies sprinkling pixie dust everywhere with rainbows just opening up from the earth. Like, I just,
But you know what he did? He basically put on out in public the very first identification, I'm gonna call it the first, of Mary Sueism. That's basically what he said, right? That there's nothing wrong. They're inherently good. They come, and all the men are inherently bad. I mean, this is an early breakdown, but this is something that brothers have taken years, just in the last 15 years. It's taken us years to be able to articulate. He's laying this out in 1986.
Yeah, I mean, and doing so like without wincing. Like, I mean, this guy's not like thinking profoundly and deeply. He's just like, this is his academic response as a knee-jerk reaction to some of the things that he's witnessing. I mean, and not to say that, he hasn't studied it, because I'm pretty sure he's adroit and is erudite. So, I mean, it's part of his profession. So, I mean, he's going to study what he's going to be critical of. But he's doing this without breaking a sweat or feeling any shame or remorse or giving any apologies or defenses for saying it.
Exactly.
He doesn't have any, reservations at all about offering his critique. And contemporarily, there's so many, trigger warnings that have to be made. There's so many statements that have to be prefaced before you can get to the meat, what it is that you actually want to say, in response to some of the claims that these women make. And anyway, man, I mean, he's talking about Steinem. He talks about lesbianism like this is a lesbian propaganda movie, which it is to a certain degree. I'm going to tell you what the movie is. It is an artistic representation of the Black feminist ethos, especially from the Combahee River Collective, angle. Namely, we're Black lesbian feminists, and here's our idea about our experiences with men in the Black community. Here, take a look, see. And the most tender and the most rich and robust relationships that we have is with one another, as like lovers or whatever the case may be. But what we also know is that they have some of the most volatile, violent, and dysfunctional relationships just amongst each other. Mm-hmm. And they and as something that we talked about the other day, even within the context of these lesbian relationships, they still play out masculine and feminine dynamics in a large portion of them. Mm-hmm. What's that all about?
With higher rates of abuse, documented. Yeah.
Let's keep pushing, man. So it's a lot of stuff that this man is dropping here. Check it out.
Is it important that we have a promotion of the heterosexual family unit as we have traditionally been concerned?
You said, is it important that
Is it important in terms of literature, as far as Black people is concerned, that we promote heterosexual relationships, therefore heterosexual family units?
I don't see that as a priority. What I see as a priority is like using literature to capture the Black experience and all of its diversity and to try to tell the truth.
Well, what is the role of the Black lesbian in terms of the philosophy or the political direction of the Black community?
Well, I think one of the things that the movie did, and that's probably most Black people's only exposure, to a lesbian depiction, either in film or literature, that is through either the film or the book of The Color Purple. What the book did was to show that Black lesbians, as had Black gay men, have always been a part of the Black community. And in that situation that she created were really very integral parts. They were not ostracized. They were not hated. They just continued to, function as important members of that community.
The lesbian relationship wasn't ostracized, but the heterosexual relationships were ostracized.
I'm not sure about that. Mr. at the end of the book, which is really, I think, very important, and again, something that most critics do not look at the end of of the book, Mr. has been transformed, as have most of the other men in the book. They get along very well with each other. Celie says he's not Suge, but he begins to be somebody I can talk to. And they sit on the porch and they talk and do whatever, they do. They become like family members. It's a very family book, a very familial book.
I think the problem with the book is that you go through the first section of the book lambasting heterosexual relationships. Men are not good lovers. I think that's probably the most positive thing about the book is that in the movie that it shows black men as bad lovers.
Yeah, I'm sorry, man. Go ahead, man. You gotta yell at me. You gotta yell at me, man.
Wait a minute. Look, man. This woman just said that she's talking about Mr., right? Danny Glover's character in The Color Purple.
Transformed.
He's transformed, right? What happens at the end of the story to him? I mean, he's supposed to be cool now, right? She cites Celie saying, well, he's not Suge, but he's someone I can talk to. That man was living by himself, isolated and left aside and discarded by everybody. And this is somehow good for black men. That's what resonates as good for us. That's the position we're in. That's good.
Hey, we all get along. And look, it says, did the audio stop? No, not on my end. If there's an issue, if you can hear the sound, put a 1 in the chat. If you can't hear the sound, put a 2 in the chat. We stopped the audio only because we're having a conversation. So I don't know if the audio stopped on your end out there. If you can hear, put a 1. If you can't hear, put a 2. But anyway, look. Okay. It's just the oddest thing in the world, man. So I mean, what she will not do is be overly critical, in this forum about black feminists, lesbian feminists. Okay, that's what the issue is here. And she's apologizing for Walker's work, and look, she can do what she wanted. She can write whatever she wants to write, right? And she can have whatever opinion she wants to have about that work. I'm fine with it. But black men were not afraid to have these conversations early on. Now it's like if you even had a conversation or even mention it, isn't it like a political, norm? Isn't it a political value to promote healthy and robust heterosexual families? I mean, because that's how children are sired into the world primarily, right? I mean, I'm just asking a simple question, it's rhetorical, but without healthy and, some substantive relationships between men and women, how are you going to actually have, children who are functional? How does it even happen?
But and as she said, that's not her priority. But here's the thing. What is her priority? Well, her priority, what she starts out laying out there, is that basically black lesbian relationships have not been mainstreamed. They've not been normalized. And what she's doing is she's treating black lesbian relationships as an inherent good, that if that can just get out more, it does something in society. It's an inherently good and useful thing that will benefit. This is the framework by which she's approaching this. So when she's asked the question about heterosexual relationships, her first response is, no, I'm not, it's not my focus. But we're living in a condition now where it fairly has been normalized in a very particular way, and especially in regard to the mainstream. Is it a social good? Well, you still got groups like BLM that are still proposing that it is, right? Remember, before they took it off their website, most of us, here remember their characterization of the statements about the nuclear family and the extent to which, families need to be diverse and different. And all of that was just code for absent heterosexual men. And they still treat it like some type of social good. But what's come out of it that is inherently good? That's what I want to know.
Well, thank you, Brother Charles Rich. I appreciate your donation there. And, look, let me just say this. It was a brother who put a comment in the chat. It's a way to write us out of the picture, man. I mean, bottom line, it's a way to say, okay, these people are insignificant. We can move on and progress without them. They're part of the problem. Our lives will be made better without having to contend with them and their issues. And our issue is them. Or part of our issue is them. Okay? The other part may be race or whatever the case may be, but a large portion of the problems that we suffer from in our culture are those related to these black chauvinist men who are abusive and who are violent sexually. I mean, at the end of the day, that's what it is. That's just what it is. So any shout out to Darkness. Appreciate that, brother. Appreciate it. So let's keep forging forward, man. We got like 20 more minutes.
Able to take some of the pressure off of black men in everyday life. But I kept reading this stuff about having sex with a man is like going to the toilet and all these negative things. And I said, well, I want to see what the substitute. What are you going to replace this with? And when we get to the lesbian relationship, we don't get any explicit descriptions of the lovemaking. We get a travel log. She jumps to Africa, which I think is the biggest flaw in the book.
Yeah, a lot of people have pointed that out.
Well, tell me, Mr. Reed, you have made a number of allegations in your writing that the stereotype of the black male is being consciously manipulated on Broadway and in publishing houses and in literary circles. Now, can you explain that, please?
Well, I think that there are a lot of misogynistic impulses among black men. I don't want to.
Could you help the viewers understand these big words?
Well, I think black men, a lot of black men don't treat women very well, and I've had experience in that myself. I'm trying to change. We all have to change, and I think what the feminist movement has contributed is that they show that while black men were fighting for their liberation in the 1960s, they were oppressing other people. So I think that's a positive point they've made. What I think is that there's enough misogyny to go around. For example, before I left Oakland, I went to the library, so nobody will think I'm indulging in rhetoric. And I looked up an article that was published in the New York Times, December 6th, 1982. I want to make that so people won't say that this is a myth or I'm making this up. It says that there's a big problem of wife beating in Jewish American families, both in Orthodox and Reform. I read Italian American women. They say they have a difficult time with their men. There's a book called The Dream Book by Italian American writers, women writers. Irish American women say the same thing. But it seems that black men are being chosen to take all this heat. So I think there's. Can I finish? I think there's enough misogyny to go around. I went to a forum in Berkeley on The Color Purple, and there are people from all nationalities there. Women from all nationalities. Chinese American women. I said, don't you have any problems in your with Chinese American men? Do they all change diapers and do dishes? I mean, are they all feminists? And it just seems black men are being singled out, as other social, economic, and political movements in the past have singled black men out as scapegoats for their failures. Like in the 19th century, was a labor movement. The Knights of Labor went out massacring black men who tried to form unions. So I think this is just the latest in a number of movements to use a black man as a scapegoat. When I saw The Color Purple advertised as come join the celebration, I thought I was being invited to a lynching. And I was, black men were lynched. So I think that black men have problems, Italian American men have problems, Jewish American men have problems. So I wonder why Gloria Steinem doesn't point that out. Why Gloria Steinem, for example, doesn't talk about the oppression of Jewish American men upon Jewish American women. Why don't Kathleen Kennedy, who took the book to Hollywood, talk about the oppression of Irish American men upon Irish American women? So I think there's enough to spread. I think we're being used as scapegoat. And you go internationally. You go to places where no black men are. I was in Berlin, for example. Very few black men there. All the feminists there are all upset about The Color Purple and single out black American men as, being the epitome of racism. I received a paper. I was referee for a dissertation by a woman in India. Now, there ain't no black men, in India, all the way over there. And she's saying that Alice Walker's correct and black American men are this and that. So I think that maybe some of this heat can be taken off of us. And we will try to reform, but we're not the only ones who are male chauvinists.
And I think that what you were seeing at that forum. And
you want to say something about that? Because, it's some, Carlos says he's pandering. Well, GC say, Ishmael Reed is kind of pandering. So what do you think about that?
Well, two things. First and foremost, hashtag receipts. All right. My boy did his research and he can identify the books he was talking about. He can identify the statistics he's referencing. That's the first thing. I love that. But here's the other. There was no manosphere in 86. There's no, he didn't have a crew in the audience that was with him, understood his points, could engage the same books that were written on, like we can talk about the man not now. There wasn't none of that in 86. He's sitting on this stage virtually alone. And I mean that in regard to, this kind of approach to defending black men. So I would be careful about measuring what he's doing against standards we have today. I mean, yes, today we would probably call a degree of that pandering, but in 1986, how many brothers could you see who have the skills, the positioning, the experience, and the degrees, and so on and so forth, that would sit on stage and critique and push back against these black feminist narratives? There was no blueprint for this. That's really the core of what I'm trying to say. There was no blueprint for this. If anything, Staples and Reed have actually contributed to the blueprint of black male studies, but there was no blueprint in 86 for this. So y'all got to be a little forgiving here, because he's preempting everything we're doing by 35 years.
Right. And like you said, I mean, this is uncharted territory. This man is not like sitting here with like hundreds and hundreds of articles at his disposal to point out, the subordinate male target hypothesis, or,
right.
He doesn't have a Dr. Johnson to read, a Tommy Curry to read. He doesn't have, like different people to listen to. He doesn't have an Osami Frimpong's or, Ronald Neal's, or no one to help guide them through. They don't have, the mad bus driver or O'Shea Duke Jackson. This guy's just thinking, he's speaking extemporaneously about what his knee-jerk reaction to these ideas are.
And what you just said was so powerful, especially when you brought up Jim Sedanius' social dominance theory. He preempted that by a few years with this interview. So and Sedanius just died. So, I mean, Reed is still alive, but I'm saying, that's how far back this goes. He preempts social dominance theory, and the creator of which has passed away, and he's laying this out then. So I'm willing to give him a little elbow room, because, it's almost like watching the foundation of a martial art, seeing it for the first time, and you want to compare it to what happens 35 years later. Slow down.
And look, he's just basically saying here, look, we're not the only ones who are, if there is such a thing as men being chauvinistic, we're not the only ones. But why are we being made to be the poster boys of chauvinism? Like, why are we being, promoted throughout the world as having these issues when, like, what about the Jewish men? Like, why are you not spending time talking about your own demographic and your own race? Right. And your own, your own ethnic group? Why is it that you're taking all of these steps and making all of these moves to, help and aid black women? Like, right. Really, like what's really at work here? Okay? Right. Like, what's really being done here? Right?
And he lays out beauty. One of the things I like, and this is why I said I started with receipts. He didn't say, I heard some people in Russia. He said, I was in Berlin, right? I was in Berlin, and the conversation was about black men thanks to The Color Purple. He brought up India. He's saying that there's an international focus on black men as the face of abuse, and yet we're a small percentage of society. How exactly do we become the face of this? And I think, that in and of itself needs to be something that's put into context. And I think he's trying to lay that case out, and he starts it by acknowledging that, misogyny exists. Do you think she will acknowledge that misandry even exists?
I think she would, but she's going to say it's insignificant, because what the arguments that they're going to make is that basically, it's just like, the black argument that people make now. Like, well, I can hate white folks, but that doesn't mean I'm a racist, precisely because I can't do anything with my racist thoughts, right? So it's the same thing. Women are going to say, well, I can hate men, but I can't really do anything because I'm not empowered to be able to actually hurt or harm men.
Uh-huh. Which
is ridiculous. I mean, granted, the kind of power that they have with the institutional structures that exist within this country. I mean, the family court system, The police on speed dial, Poppy on speed dial. I'm just saying, like, these are realities.
Well, see, and that's why I asked the question the way I did, which she acknowledged misandry. They talked briefly about whether or not, you know, there are women writers that write hate toward men in their works, and she says there are, and I refuse to do that. But I'm talking about misandry, and just the way you laid out is incredibly important. At this point, you already had a practice of using family courts against men, particularly black men. At this point, you already had a particular, you know, outlook on violence against women and the policies therein that protect women. At this point, you already had the pill, which empowered women in terms of having control over their reproductive processes and not having done so for men. At this point, you're seeing the introduction of black feminism onto the world stage via popular culture, as supported by names like Steven Spielberg. You have enough institutional misandry on the table, even in 1986, but there's no language for it outside of, at best, hatred of men in literature. That's as far as they kind of got in this discussion, and she wouldn't give ground on that to any great degree. But there is enough institutional misandry on the table. We just don't have a vocabulary for it. We didn't have one until really in this last 10 years.
And to defend him further, let me just say this. Early on, he made mention of the fact that, yeah, okay, men have some chauvinistic attitudes and some ideas. He's consistent about this, okay? Mm-hmm. And he says, you know, even me, perhaps, you know, I've had to, you know, do some internal work related to this, you know, this issue about, well, you know, women can't think, they're not logical, or, you know, they're just absolutely emotional, and they, you know, they're like substandard people, or whatever the case may be, right? And there's some people who think that, okay? I just, you know, I know some bright women, and I know some bright men. I know some dumb women and dumb men. I mean, I'm not trying to be ignorant by saying this. You know, like, all of this stuff is on a scale, you know, or on a curve. It's not like just, you know, every woman is just dumb and illogical, and every man is just logical and non-emotive. But ultimately, he's saying, but women are the same way. They have misandry, like they have like female chauvinism as well, and we don't talk about it or discuss it. He says that, right? So I'm just, you know, saying, like, we got to give him a little, somewhat of a pass, because I mean, he's the manosphere, what? Pre-manosphere.
Yeah.
He's the pre-manosphere.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So let's watch some more.
Well, and shout out to Dr. Neal in the comments.
Yeah, shout out to Dr. Neal. You know, I see you. Check it.
Oakland, you know, where you said Chinese American women were coming, etc. There's solidarity amongst women of color, you know, both in this country and internationally. Yes. True. Well, I mean, were you there?
I was there.
No, what I'm saying is, have you been where I have been?
Hold on, stop, because you say. He said solidarity amongst women of color. He's like, that's not true.
Not true. Then she said, well, were you there? He said, I was there.
Right. And let's be honest, man. Look, and this is the thing. Like this is, see, white women talk about the women's solidarity to what aim or end?
Right.
Do you get what I'm saying? And that's something that needs to be put on the table. Like, okay, yeah, we're in solidarity with women. We're women first, or whatever the case may be. Okay, well. How many Beckys is inviting you over to her house, man, to spend time with her, you know, and her family, man, and making sure that you have the same networking opportunities that she has? You know, apart from, you know, the superficial policies that they have with these diversity and inclusion, you know, offices or whatever the case may be. How many of them are like your real ride or dies?
Well, and then the other core question one could ask is, how the hell, if y'all are solidated or y'all are solidified, how do white women become the face of minorities in terms of, you know, affirmative action, employment, and pay? How exactly does that happen? And how does she make 75 cents on the dollar and you still making 60 something cents? I mean, but see, the key is he knows this. He's pulling this out then. And just like somebody said in the comments a few minutes ago, he didn't go online to do it. He had to get microfiche. He had to go to
I saw that too. And he's right. Yeah.
Library. He had to say it I went to the library, and he's laying it out even then.
Right. So he, there's more information available to us. There's more people talking about these issues who are aware of them, now as opposed to then. So he's like he's a frontiersman. And he's he's doing it unapologetically with no reservations whatsoever. No. Today you'd be hard pressed to find someone having the gall to have this conversation in the open right now. Mm-hmm. Especially in the academy, someone that, like in his position, people are always worried about are you going to actually be typecast as somebody who doesn't like women?
Right.
Like, look, again, the issue is not whether we like or dislike women. Like, do we like what women are actually doing? Like, do we like some of the things that women do? Like, and then he also says, like, this whole like idea, and I've said this myself, like you partition the world into good and bad. You have, and it's a Marxian kind of dichotomy, right? You got the bourgeoisie who are the men, and then you got the proletariat who are the women. Or you have like this Manichaean split where there's good and there's evil. It's like Zoroastrianism, or it's like Pythagoreanism, where you have the oblong and the even, the oblong and the right angle, and then you have the odd and the even, and then you have like positive and negative. Like, come on, man, you got good versus evil. Like this Manichaean dualism, it just doesn't speak to the nuances that exist in the actual world. Both men and women are people. We both have the capacity to inaugurate evil in the world. That's what we need to talk about. Now, personally, I don't have time, man, to pay for the sins of white dudes, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not my issue, man, what white dudes did. Now, when you start talking about these other issues, when they start talking about sexual violence and domestic violence, that's where all of this hinges. Because you can't really actually say that black men have any institutional power. So the only thing that black men can do in order to express their chauvinism or their disdain for women is to do what? Is to beat them or to, accost them sexually. That's the only way. That's the only power that men have. And people like, and he even mentions her. So let me stop talking, man. It's Jim's here already, bro.
Let me just add, it's not just women's behavior. My issue is how exactly they are financed, supported, and advanced in terms of having access to institutions that black men don't have. So it's one thing to say that we're all capable of capable of evil as human beings. That's one thing. But when one group is given a greater degree of access to implement that evil on a wider platform, especially when targeted at another group, and I'm talking from at this point between black men and women, that's a very different dynamic. And it's not, for me, it's not as much about her nature, which I think is, you're dealing with human nature, but her capacity to impose that on others. And that's the conversation people don't want to have. So we just get locked into this, well, you do bad things. Well, you do bad things. Yeah, but just like Antonio Moore was talking about the other day in regard to that article in The Atlantic about black women dating down by dating black men, he said, and this was profound, he said, black men are not writing these articles and having them published in The Atlantic. They're not being published at major academic presses. They're not being published even at major journalistic. None of this for black men is being published on any widespread platform. It's not.
And this speaks to the issue
on YouTube.
And this is the thing, right? Black women have been afforded the opportunity to express their political viewpoints, particularly black feminists, to uncover what they consider to be the dirt under the table or the dirt under the black male's fingernails, right? They've been given this platform. And there's other platforms that they've been given as well, okay? But we have none. Just look at the brothers, man. Like just recently, I think it was what's the brother's name, man, who does the show and he uses like the church organs and all of that stuff, man.
Oh, Mr. Jap.
Yeah, Mr. Jap, Minister Jap.
Minister Jap, yeah.
Yeah, Minister Jap. They've been taking their channels down. Like as soon as you try to speak and say something, they'll take your channel down. It'll be regarded as something that's regressive or misogynistic or hateful.
Right.
But these women can write these stories where men are being killed, mutilated, burned up, the property destroyed, or whatever the case may be. And these women are winning Pulitzer Prizes.
But then the other cold part is they want to take a video by an individual black male and say, see, that's negative, just like the article in the Atlantic was negative. And it's like, wait a minute. How exactly do you compare a piece in Essence magazine? I still don't know how many magazines brothers have, right? Or a piece in something. How do you compare that to a cat on YouTube, right? I mean, I don't care. Look, and I said this before, even Kevin Samuels, who's got over 1 million subscribers, I find white dudes on YouTube with 4, 5, 6 million, and they're not even doing anything controversial. It took controversy and a year and a pandemic for one brother coming out of the manosphere to get 1 million subscribers. And yet there are people with 5 times that amount that aren't even doing anything, challenging. That's the manosphere is in its infancy in many respects still. And yet individual black men's videos are being compared to black women's works who are put on a large pedestal, and it doesn't make any sense.
But even beyond that, look, the material that really actually works in the manosphere is material that's absolutely gynocentric. I hate to say this, man, but that's just the truth. Like, if the discussion is not centered around women, then what you're discussing really doesn't have much traction. Mm. That's just the facts, man. Now, I don't mean, to be ignorant about that, or to be, negative, a downer about it. But I mean, it's just the reality. It's like, it just is what it is. It's empirically a fact that if you're not really actually, continuously haranguing, women or talking about women in some sort of way, nobody wants to tune into what you have to say. Mm-hmm. And so, that's why I say WWNN. What's next? Like, what's the next evolution? What's the next step? And even like, I love Kevin Samuel's show because of what it actually alludes to and illustrates in the end. But it is a show that the pretext of it is, okay, you want a man. How do you think you're going to go about getting one? And you being in the situation that you're in with the baggage that you have, both, like from children to your mind state, like what makes you think you're worthy of one? So the context is, how can I guide this woman to actually get what she wants? But, like that's the pretext. But I mean, a lot of other stuff goes on, that's kind of like, shoehorned in. But I mean, but the pretext is I'm helping women find a mate to marry. Mm. You get what I'm saying? So like, all I know is, man, when you start talking about the institutions,
right?
And then look, I love Kevin Samuel's show, in relation to what he's done in terms of illustrating, like as far as I'm concerned, the superficiality,
right,
of a lot of these women, man. Well, I mean, the sense of entitlement, like I deserve to be able to have this man making so much money, and if the man doesn't make this much money, then that man has no value for me. Right? This man has, he's not worthy of what I have to offer. And, and the reality of the situation is, first of all, most men, even white men, are not like at the level that these women desire a black man to be at. Like, it's just the reality. Like, what makes you think you're so special? And then you got all this baggage, emotionally, psychologically, and you got kids. What makes you think you're entitled to the cream of the crop of black men? Like, why would you even think that you're worthy of that? And what do you have to offer to him?
No,
these, it's just,
I completely agree, because in terms of that, we have not seen that example on a regular basis being put out there for public consumption in terms of the women that are calling in the Kevin show. But in terms of going back to what we were talking about, earlier with that, what was happening with his show when he was talking to just men? right?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Zero.
Absolutely nothing. So, and that becomes the dichotomy. The first person to quote unquote break into the mainstream out of the manosphere had to address women to do so. And that's one of the fundamental problems. And you can see going back to 1986 that it wasn't just a problem then, because you don't see the intellectual and ideological children of Ishmael Reed in regard to gender and the protecting of black men. You don't see them replicated in the academy. I was not introduced to this line of thinking when I went into, go to college, when I went to undergrad. I didn't see it. I didn't hear about it. I met brothers who may have shared this, but they didn't teach that. If anything, when it came to gender, it was hands off. Like, for example, when I got to Temple to work on my master's in African American studies, all the black women in the program, and I don't use all much, all went to go to women's studies to take courses, not just with Sonia Sanchez, but just to take courses. And then they would come back to Africana or African American studies and bring those arguments in there. Very few of the men did, unless they were really kind of pandering, I'll be honest with you. But short of that, it was overwhelmingly women. They would leave the department to go to women's studies, come back in terms of the coursework and bring those concepts in. What I'm saying is that was mainstreamed even then, but there were no responses for brothers.
But and here's the deal too. Who's in control of the academy, man? Who, from the provost, the chancellor, the president? You know what I'm saying? Like, all these people are white people, man, and you got some white women in there. A lot, especially today. Like, white women are gatekeepers, ideological gatekeepers. They even, like, if you apply for a job at a university today, you have to have a diversity and an inclusion statement.
Mm-hmm.
You have to show that, okay, I'm all for whatever it is. Like, I mean, like Tony Brown was talking about, do you promote heterosexual family values? Like, if you say that that's something that you stand behind today, oh my God, man, they're gonna be like, oh, we don't like this candidate.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, they can't say it openly because that's not the way you hire people. But I mean, you could definitely, I mean, there is a subjective component to hiring people in academia. Like, I don't like his disposition. I don't like how he handled himself at the dinner. I know it's kind of superficial. I mean, even if you don't state it, that's impacting, the kind of decisions that you make on the other level. You get what I'm saying? So, yeah, there's that, bro. But anyway, these people, man, they know who they want to be there implanting seeds into young minds. They know what to do, man. These people are not dumb, bro. They know how to, to stack the deck. And they basically stack the deck they want to. I mean, the way they wanted to. And so this is what we have now. But if you were to put more heterosexual black men into these positions, then you get pushback. But then that would be, that would create some discomfort. You know what I'm saying? So, but anyway, man, let's keep pushing through this, man.
Mm-hmm.
To the Women's Empowerment Conference, I was one of the few men there.
What did you say?
Women's Empowerment Conference. And they talked about all the problems they're having. The straight women hate the gay people, the gay women. The black women hate the white women. As a matter of fact, I read Off Our Backs, the publication, and it said the white women have to call up these black meetings before they even go. They have to call up black feminists and say, it's okay for me to attend this meeting. There's so much hostility between the two. The gay men don't like the feminists because they stand on pornography. So there's so much division in this movement. The way to galvanize the movement, I guess, has been the solution is to choose black men as scapegoats, and they all agree on that, and that brings them together.
You better drop a bomb, Gigi.
Boy, he dropped a bomb. Yeah, I gotta drop a bomb on that. Hey, look at his face. Because he knows he's right.
He knows it.
Well, he knows he's right.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Dave, okay, so y'all don't like each other very well to begin with. Y'all have tensions amongst yourselves.
Right.
Okay? But the one thing that you can do in order to solidify yourselves more concretely, to create a more substantive bond amongst yourselves, is to basically say, we definitely don't like them. They're the white people or black people. There you go.
It's interesting, man, when you hear the same kind of things coming from people with whole different backgrounds, whole different contexts. That's when you're probably dealing with something that's environmental. Who else said exactly what he just said?
Who's that?
Dave Chappelle. Remember
Oh,
when
yeah.
Dave Chappelle did the jokes about, the car and the gay guy driving the car, the feminist in the passenger seat, and the trans people, I think, were out trying to hitchhike. Remember, he had that whole little skit, but he was basically saying the same thing. They don't inherently get along just because they're in a category. But, when it comes to identifying the problem, one of the things you hear brothers say is somehow we got to be the scapegoat of it. And we still are. Black men still are. By the time you get to BLM, by the time you get to look, the whole country was rioting last year over what? The deaths of black men. Except now the hatred toward black men manifests differently. Now you got organizations that use black male death for attention and then bait and switch the conversation as soon as you start paying attention to them. The hatred of black men is still there. They've just found us useful as a means of attracting attention for their own agendas. He ain't wrong.
And what's even more crazy about it, bro? What's even more crazy? There's a comedian, Michael Che, who basically, he said the same thing, but about white folks. He said, have you ever been to a Black Lives Matter rally and it ain't nothing but white people there? White women, like it was just all white women. Like when did they become outraged at black male death? They were the major catalyst for black male death.
Get it.
Man, I ain't gonna drop no bomb on that, bro. But but it's the truth.
Right.
Like a lot of those lynchings were at the word of a white woman. He did this to me. He got close to me. He made me feel uncomfortable. Basically, that's the real Me Too. Okay, but we all know what their white, husbands and brothers and sons were doing with black women. And then, and it's just this political alliance is weird to me. But, but this is a woman who says, though, that she refuses to badmouth all men.
But how many of them denied their family inheritance because of where it came from and how the family received it? How many of them did that?
Man, come on, bro. But if I had a thug life like one of them da-da-da-da-das with the glasses and a blunt, I would be showing it right there. Let me keep pushing, bro.
I just wanted to make a comment on your experience in your travels around the world and the repercussions of movies such as The Color Purple, books that reflect antagonism, I guess, among black men and black women. We are the ones in control of our destiny, and we are the ones in control of how others view us and how we view ourselves. And I think that if literary writers and if producers and critics were to concentrate more on the positive things, and I'm purely idealistic and optimistic in this opinion, but I think that we do have some beautiful love stories and fantastic relationships amongst black people. And if we can identify those through writings and through documentaries, then we can begin to see that positive imagery evolve that we all know exist.
I wonder what people were saying, and some of you probably remember what people were saying when Native Son came out in the 1940s. That was a book by a famous black male writer, Richard Wright, in which two women are murdered, a white woman and a black woman. But as far as I know, he was never drummed out of the fraternity of black male writers for writing a book about a black man murdering women. Do you see the analogy that I'm making?
Well, the movie is being remade now.
Well, it's being remade.
But what I'm saying, if a black woman dares to write about what's actually happening, because incest is happening, rape is happening, battering is happening, and murder is happening. It didn't start happening just this minute. We get chastised.
I looked at the statistics on that before I left home on this because I was very interested in this, and I went to the library and I looked up the FBI statistics, which were published in July 1985, and it said that 80% of the sex offenders in this country are white men. Why don't they make movies about that?
Hey,
I think this is a
Just had to throw that in there.
Keep it going. You're going to need to drop a bomb in a second.
great subject for a movie. I think that's fine.
Okay.
That's fine. I have no problems with that.
I think the propaganda against black men being promoted by Ms. Magazine is a capitalistic magazine every time.
It is. It's a bourgeois,
it,
middle-of-the-road magazine.
I call it capitalistic.
Sure,
If
that
you look at that, if you look at propaganda, you look at The Color Purple, you would think that incest and the only people committing incest and committing rape are black men. This is not true.
I think the thing that upsets people is that in the novel she portrayed it in such a compelling, and heartfelt way that people can't turn away from it. She wasn't just giving us statistics; she was giving how it really happens, and it's happening up in Harlem
I don't know
today
where she got this,
too.
I don't know where she got the statistics. 1909. I don't know if she did her research or homework on that. But I think the point about that book is that there's some hatred in here. Now, Alice Walker said,
I didn't write the book.
Just hold on a second. She said that in the you quote her though. You quote,
I think she's a really good writer.
You quote remarks that she made about me that were wrong, that were incorrect.
They were wrong.
Because he reads her. You never hear him really talk about her reading him. He read her work, and think about that, Gigi. We as graduate students, we had to read feminist work. We read Black feminist works, white feminist works. We read LGBT works. We had to read all, and it wasn't just when you took a gender studies course, because gender studies professors would bring it into whatever they taught. So when you took a writing course, when you took whatever, you had to deal with it. How many of them have bothered to read Tommy Curry? You tell me. I get feminists who respond to my work based on the title of something I put out there, whether it's a paper or a video. They don't even have the basic level of respect to watch it or read it. But
there's a term for that, man.
Reading their work.
There's a term for this. But it's out of context to a certain extent. But I think it's in context to a certain degree. Inverted epistemology. This is a group of people who could know, but they don't want to know because they don't want their worldview challenged.
Right.
They would have to, reorganize their politics. They would have to think differently and have a different orientation towards men. Just let him continue, because this guy's he's really a genius,
Yes.
Are you saying?
I never said that if I was a black lesbian I would sell more books. Now, if you go back to American Book Review where that interview was published, you would see that I didn't say that. But she said in the New York Times Magazine section, which is one of these liberal do-gooder, meddler publications run by a neoconservative.
What did he say? You got a peak game. So you got a neoconservative who's controlling white liberal media.
Get it?
Who owns white liberal media? You better ask somebody, boy. How does that work? I'm asking the question, but it's a rhetorical question. Let me keep pushing.
They cited her as telling the black woman's story. In other words, this woman speaks for all black women. A lot of black feminists I know objected to that. She said that black men are evil.
Who said that?
Alice Walker said black men are evil. She said they're more evil than white men because white men are aware of their evil. I wish she'd go down to Washington and tell some of those people down there that. So I think this is a position I never take, and yet I'm called misogynist. What do you call her?
Uh-oh.
Sister.
Uh-oh.
Boy!
Uh-oh. You see?
You look at his face. Look at him. Check him out. Look.
When I asked the question, would she acknowledge, misandry? What did she say? Alice Walker came out and called black men evil, more evil than white men. I told you the brother was pulling receipts. And when he challenged her and asked her what the hell that is, who she is for doing it, she didn't say she's a misandrist. She said, that's my sister.
And you know what? This is what she basically said.
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. You know what? And we still have that happening now. Amongst feminists, amongst gender studies scholars, how often have you heard of one calling out another for their misandry?
Man.
Have you ever heard of it?
Man, I haven't heard of it. Have you heard of it?
No, sir. Not
Man.
one.
I ain't heard of it once either, bro. I'm just gonna keep it 100 with you.
Which gives a whole different weight to the way remember we said he was some people were saying he was pandering earlier by acknowledging that men can be misogynistic. See, now it puts a little different spin on that, right? When you take that moment and you relate it to the Alice Walker statement he just made, you know what I mean? He acknowledged men ain't perfect. There are plenty of men that are misogynist. When he turned it around and asked her about that, she couldn't admit it. And that's still happening now. Still.
Man.
Right. Right.
I'm gonna stop with the theatrics, man. I'm done with the theatrics. But I mean, you know,
you're gonna need that bomb in a little bit. Just saying.
Yeah. I know it. Hey, man, brotherly love 215, man. Thank you for the donation, my brother. Appreciate that.
Amen.
Appreciate that. So look, let me continue with this, bro.
It's a double standard.
I understand that quite a few people focused on the blackness of the movie. For me personally, I'm probably in the minority, a very gross, small minority. But when I saw that movie, I looked at it as representing what all men did back then, whether they were black or white. Mm-hmm. I grew up in an integrated society. I have had problems personally and professionally on jobs with white men as well as black men. In addition to that, when I saw the movie, I didn't concentrate on the anger. The fellow I went to see it with, I reached over, kissed him on the cheek, and was holding his hand and all this stuff, because what I saw in the movie was a man, Mr., was very pressured by his past, and he was under a lot of stress. So I saw it as, he's got to perform, he's got to do this. I looked at the pressure, and I looked at what one of my students that I was teaching at the time was talking about, misguided love, and I was not looking at race so much as, so this is what my grandmother was trying to tell me. This is what she was telling me about women and men and the pressures and why you can't trust a man and why you can't do this and can't do that. But I looked at it the same as you say, if we are going to find out about each other, we have got to tell the truth. You can't keep this stuff in the closet anymore. Let's bring it out, fight it out, make up, and go on and get things together.
Well, yeah.
So look, it's still one-sided at this point. See, right now, see, at least Ishmael is reading statistics. He's looking at data, okay? He's not just saying, okay, this is how I feel and operating off anecdotes, which is pretty much what feminism does, man. I mean, or they use police statistics, which, you know, by the way, I wouldn't trust. You know, I wouldn't weigh it, you know, as being really all that worthy, because, I mean, you get what you're looking for. Like, if you want to have a crime problem, all you got to do is arrest a certain amount of people for a specific kind of crime. Doesn't mean that those crimes aren't being committed elsewhere. It just means that you targeting this group in order to punish them, right? So I don't really trust, you know, I don't really get down with the police statistics. But when you start looking at what people say themselves and the self-reporting that people do, whether they're male or female, you really better watch out, okay? But anyway, shout out to Charles Faulkner. He says the brother's so bad, he called down the powers of Grayskull with the sword of omens.
Yep.
Just shout out to shout out to my brother, man, smoking cigars with his you know, I ain't gonna say it tonight. Anyway, also Julius Ferguson, man, he says they deflect all the time. Why can they fall on the sword? Why can't they fall on the sword? Hey, man, you know, look, they are going to deflect, bro. They don't want to be accountable, man. Mm-hmm. Like, they just want to hold us accountable. They want, I mean, and white women have basically created this, you know, this whole narrative that they're the ones that did this, okay? White women are the ones that did this, all right? And black feminists hitched their wagons to this train, okay, to that horse. And so here we are. Yeah. And feminism wasn't all that popular back then. We talking about 86. It's come full turn now. It's like, that was the HIV stage of black feminism. It's full-blown AIDS now, dog.
Let me say this, though. In terms of, you know, when you talk about black feminism and this kind of thing, let's deal with abuse. Like she said, like the woman in the audience just said, well, I just thought this just explained what my grandmother and my aunts and what they've been all telling me, right? Here's my advocation for statistics, because I'm saying, as problematic as they are, without them, you'll take statements like hers to be gospel. And I'm saying that because I did. You know what I mean? I did. I was trained by feminists, didn't use any kind of statistics or data. They just kept telling story after story. I would come to class and they would bring a woman who had been raped and she would tell her story. And everybody would say, wow, this is so horrible. And you left with this sense that this is happening all over. Now, here is I'm not going to cuss. I'm very much on your show, but I can't help it in this instance. Here's how fucked up that was, Gigi, because I'm sitting in class as a rape victim, looking at this woman who's a rape victim and taking my hat off to say, damn, men are raping women. This is ridiculous. But at no point did we look at any data or any statistics. And by the time I started to look at it and I started to realize what wasn't being told, I was like, this is a problem. And this is one of the reasons I like Ishmael Reed in this interview, because he's taking the statistics that were available at the time, and there was enough for him to make this argument, but he was willing to go pull it up, and he's hitting them with it, and they don't have a response because they're relying on emotional arguments about my grandmother said this happened to her, my mother said it happened to her, ergo it's happening everywhere, and black men are doing it.
But there's enough evidence around nowadays. I mean, the social science.
But there's evidence
there.
Look, hey, you just get the bomb ready, man. That's all I'm gonna say.
I know what you're talking about, and it's gonna be right. It's gonna be ready. Okay, because he's gonna burn them to flames. I got it ready. So look,
I think we're all wondering if that's all truth. I think everybody's saying some black men did that, but I think.
And look, I gotta give Tony a bomb too, man. Look. Like, come on, man. Like, look, every woman has been through a Sealy moment, man. Like, every grandma, every big mama, everywhere has been through that, man. Mm-hmm. Like, honestly. Mm-hmm. We know now that only like maybe a quarter of relationships have this sort of violence anyway. And that the vast majority of it is what's called bidirectional violence. And that in the vast majority of instances, women are the ones initiating the violence to begin with.
And get some of them old brothers to tell you stories about grandma pulling a shotgun on grandpa, or throwing a pot of hot grease at him, or hot grits. Get them stories going. But see, the difference is nobody asked grandpa what grandma did. They only asked grandma what grandpa did.
And so, all I can say is, let me keep going, because this, it's shocking.
For us to accept that as the truth about black men is as dangerous as if we accepted a statement that was true of all Jewish men or all Italian men.
That's the point, Tony.
But we have movies on black men once every 50 years. And we don't have one to go across the street next week and see in which we're decent. That's the problem.
Well, one of the people who began all this black male hatred, which has become a growth industry, incidentally, that should be something on Wall Street for it, was Susan Brownmiller, who in her book Against Our Will said that all black men are rapists, or all black men support rape or recommend rape, and that was the book of the year in Time magazine. And the only feminist to reply to her these racist charges was Angela Davis.
I would like to ask this question. Have we got to the point where we can see, not that feminism is a trap for black people, but isn't it sort of pulling us apart? I mean, my grandmother got down with my grandfather, and my father got down with my mother to produce a black family. And that's how we basically got here. Isn't feminism really about the spoiled white women in Scarsdale? Is it really about black folks who are really hustling to get to where we are now?
No, what black feminism is about, that's all I've ever called myself, is a black feminist, putting my feminism into the context of my community. Yes, Ishmael, let me finish this time.
I read your book.
But the thing is that what black feminism is about that woman trying to raise her children on welfare in Harlem and not having that work respected enough that she gets enough money to do it. It's our sisters who are in the SROs right now, surrounded by rats and drugs, et cetera, et cetera. It's about a black woman who can't walk down the street in safety. I lived in Boston for 9 years. In 1979, 12 black women were murdered in a 4-month period in Boston. I lived in Roxbury. That is a black community in Boston. What did it mean to me and to every black female and black man in Boston that 12 black women were murdered precipitously during that period? That's what black feminism is about, to try to explain that.
I'll tell you what, Jet Magazine, which I read every week.
I do too.
And which is very reliable, published some Justice Department statistics that show that more black men are being killed by women than the other way around. Now, when I say that, the feminists didn't know.
Come on, man. Come on, Jimmy. Give it to me. damn it.
Hold on, wait. Hold on. So we talking the mid 80s.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Jet Magazine is putting out data that is demonstrating that you got more black women killing black men than the other way around.
Yes, sir.
And you still got feminists who are taking these ideological arguments and, you know, basically talking about how bad the world is for women. And it's like, come on, bro.
You know what? Now, I guess it's Metaphor Ace. I don't know how to pronounce his name in the comments. He's asking for a rewind, and I agree. But real quick, I just want to say, I never heard this. I didn't hear. You know who I heard this from? I heard this 30 years after this interview from Tommy Curry. Tommy was the first one to tell me about that statistic, and I believe he put it in The Man Not. He also was the one that put forth subculture of violence theory, where he's quoting from Susan Brown Miller and others who made those kind of statements. And I had him on my show last fall to talk about that, where he pointed out how black feminists literally pulled wholesale theory from racist white scholars and applied it without any kind of critical analysis, applied it and directed those same critiques to black men. The very feminist you're looking at on the screen was part of that project. And I didn't hear it until I talked to Tommy. So we're talking a 30-year difference. That's how unsupported a black male critical analysis, or what I would call a black masculinist analysis, this is how underground it's been. That it took 30 years for these talking points that he's making in this episode to be made public.
And look, in Curry's work, he talks about Susan Brown Miller.
Exactly.
But he was on Susan Brown Miller back in the day.
Yes, sir.
Man, get that man a cluster bomb, man. I mean, the dude is on game. He's on point. Okay, this is not like some rinky-dink guy. You know, I mean, you know, this man is on top of the game. Okay, you know, he's an elder statesman at the current moment. If he's not deceased, I don't think he is. But
no, he's not. And he and he gave Curry an award, I believe. I think he presented the award at Berkeley for The Man Not. So there's kind of a passing of the torch in some respects, at least in that regard, right?
Yeah. So, but look, let me rewind it so y'all can catch that again, though, because it's a request.
The spoiled white women, the Scarsdale. Is it really about black folks who are really hustling to get to where we are now?
No, what black feminism is about, that's all I've ever called myself, is a black feminist, putting my feminism into the context of my community. Yes, Ishmael, let me finish this time.
I read your book.
But the thing is that what black feminism is about that woman trying to raise her children on welfare in Harlem and not having that work respected enough that she gets enough money to do it. It's our sisters who are in the SROs right now, you know, surrounded by rats and drugs, et cetera, et cetera. It's about a black woman who can't walk down the street in safety. I lived in Boston for 9 years. In 1979, 12 black women were murdered in a 4-month period in Boston. I lived in Roxbury. That is a black community in Boston. What did it mean to me and to every black female and black man in Boston that 12 black women were murdered precipitously during that period? That's what black feminism is about, to try to explain that.
I'll tell you what, Jet Magazine, which I read every week.
I do too.
And which is very reliable, published some Justice Department statistics that show that more black men are being killed by women than the other way around. Now, when I say that, the feminists get emotional. They say, well, that's not true. It must have been because of self-defense. But I think that men should stop killing women.
They should stop killing each other.
Women should stop killing men.
And black men should stop killing each other,
too. One should not be singled out as a repository of all evil in the world.
Wait. Do you see that, man?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did.
Do you see that, man? Like, I mean, you know, like, it's like, dude, she won't address the issue.
No, she deflected.
She won't address the issue, man.
She went from being checked to quickly pivoting to talk about black male violence on other black males. She didn't acknowledge at any point what he said. And shout out to Quadwo in the comments. He laid it out that it was actually in San Francisco, even though Reed lives in Berkeley. But he presented the book award in San Francisco. So appreciate that clarification, brother. But yeah.
And look, thank you, Paul, for the super sticker. Thank you. Appreciate that, my brother. And thank you, Sam C, for your super sticker. Appreciate that, bro. Look, all we trying to do, man, is just say, hey, look, cut the cap. Like the one woman said, well, we have to tell the whole truth so we can just get over it. We do have to tell the whole truth because we'll never get over it. And these people, as far as I'm concerned, the way the system is set up now, they don't want to get over it. It's too much accoutrements to come along with it. Too many rewards to come along with it. Too much attention and adulation that comes along with it. You get paid. Like Reed is saying, this is business, man. This is like Wall Street Forbes type stuff, man. You know, you get rewarded for this. And you know, I don't know how to get past it, man, unless black men just, you know, especially in the academy. They start to say, hey, look, here's my opinion. Here's why I think you're wrong. And to say it matter-of-factly and to not be, to be unapologetic with it, man. Not to be all contrite and obsequious and toady and trying to be woke and all of that. It's like, look, man, do some research, man. And just have a realistic and an objective approach to like what's going on in the black community. Because we can't rectify any of the issues there if all we're operating on is ideological frameworks. It's just not going to work, bro.
But this is why I've been saying very recently that the way black women in particular have been conditioned and socialized is as colonial agents or colonizing agents, excuse me. And I use that term, even though both of us have been socialized in very particular ways. Black men have been socialized to die. We are not considered relevant in this society. It used to be we were at least free labor. And if they couldn't enslave you, they put you in prison and got free labor out of you. Now, I don't even know if the labor is necessary. But I can say with black women, very different. They're being socialized in a very different way. And so what you saw here was one of the earliest programs in that particular matrix, if you will, right? Her deflection from what he said, her deflection from any empirical data that he laid out, all of that is a response to having been socialized in a manner where her life is considered more important, especially in regard to the institutions that she can rely on that black men can't. The entitlement that we can see even in her behavior in this discussion is not just her as an individual. It is a product of a system that has provided her with a resource that black men don't have. So the fundamental idea that black men are lesser beings is not something she has to say, even though she is. It's something that she acts out because that's what she's known throughout her life. So she can ignore what he's saying because it's not important. You're fundamentally you're not relevant to the lives that we're trying to create and the state is helping us to create. This is where I go with that.
Right. Shout out to Black Uhuru, man. Appreciate that, man. He says we must sue them.
Black Uhuru be on that, man.
He on that suit. He on that. Like, we gonna take it to the Supreme Court. I wish I had a gavel. Bang bang.
You can't handle the truth.
Yeah, right. And VM Rock says I need a bigger bomb, man. Hey, look, man. They say I use bombs too much, man. You know, I'm just, I'm gonna try to, keep it a little more tasteful than what I have been. But look, all I know is, man, we tired of. We tired of that, bruh. It's old, bro. Man. Like how deep down this rabbit hole do we have to continuously go, man? Like before we start telling the actual truth about what's happening in our communities, in our relationships, and in our lives, man. Like how long? But anyway, man, let me keep pushing, man. Because
what you just showed was incredibly important, and it speaks to this interview. Because I'm gonna tell you, my grandmother-in-law, who has since passed, bless her soul, she went to her grave hating Danny Glover, not Mr. Well, I should say, yeah, Mr., but hating Danny Glover because as far as she was concerned, he and Mr. were the same. They were inseparable. Do you know how many women who grew up off Color Purple, or grown women at that time, had such hatred for black men, but especially having that magnified through Danny Glover's performance? You know how seriously a lot of those women still take that? They take it as real. And somehow every black woman has been with Mr. because of that film.
And you know, to me, what it does is it just conjures up the image of, or tries to, you know, that fainting couch white womanhood. Oh my God, there's so many women dying. There's so many women that are accosted. And it's like, hey, stop it, man. Stop it. Just stop it. The same things that are happening to women are also happening to men, from sexual assault to domestic violence to, you know, physical harm, enduring pain. It's almost as if these people think we're numb to pain. Like, you know, it's like black folks would, you know, like as they engage the medical system, how, you know, like white doctors don't think that black people have the same amount of pain, like from their ailments, that they're lying about it, you know. So they underprescribe the medication. It's the same thing with these chicks, man. It's the same thing. It's like what, you're mute to any injustice that's directed towards us. You're non-empathetic. They don't care. But the reason that they're able to get it off is because they say we don't care about ourselves.
Man, shout out.
You know, shout out to Joe. You know, shout out to Joe. He says he donates for bombs, man. Anytime you give me one of them, man, I got to give you a bomb, bro. Got to. Have to. Yeah.
And shout out to my boy, Dr. William Smith in the house. I hope he's well. Appreciate that support, man.
Shout out to Will Smith, man. Appreciate you, bro. Appreciate that, man. Thank you so much. So let me progress, man. We ain't got too much more of this, but
we agree on that.
Yes, what I'd like to say is that I'm not sure.
Man, look, I don't even want to get to him yet. I do, but because we do. But let me get my bomb ready for this guy, because check, you know what he's about to say, right?
Oh yeah.
If black feminists are being unfair to the black male by saying what they're saying. And I'm not sure if we should expect them to pull any punches, but I'd like to say is that I hope that black males aren't expected to pull any punches when it comes to criticism of women.
Uh-oh.
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 And that black males, when we start to say and lay out what we feel is some problems with some of the black women, that we are not kept from being published, or we can't find any producers and directors to do our work. I think that if we can get to that stage, we'll have a true dialogue. I think it has been a little one-sided up to now, and I'm kind of tired of being called a chauvinist or insecure, etc. whenever I have a few criticisms. So I think that if we can really honestly look at each other, listen to the criticism, I think we'll really get a lot further than we are now.
Are you saying?
Yes, sir. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Man, I mean, like, he's hitting it on the...
The thing is, this
brother, every brother, wait a minute, man. Every brother in the manosphere knows this.
That's what I'm saying. But he's not on the stage. You know what I'm saying? He's representing a black man in the audience. And this goes to show you that brothers had the same thoughts then. We didn't have the platform. We had to go to a free platform where we could interact all around the world. So we had to wait to the advent of social media before we actually could compare notes. But it wasn't that we weren't having these thoughts. Nobody asked us, and nobody presented us with a stage like Steven Spielberg to put our thoughts and concerns out publicly. But brothers were having these perspectives. They just didn't have anywhere to build on them. This is why I've been telling brothers, there are brothers who've been SYSBM since the 1980s, if not before. But I'm talking about the ones I actually know. Brothers who are in their 50s and 60s, who only date women from around the world. And some of them only date black women from other countries. None of the stuff we're talking about in the manosphere is new. It's just the first time we've had a stage where we can talk to each other, for one, regardless of where we are, and we could talk about it in a public space. It didn't exist in 86, but that brother highlights the fact that the thoughts and critiques were there.
And look, all it is okay. This is what we've been saying, man. Like, they got a megaphone, and we're standing on the corner with a Bible preaching. They got like the mega church.
We got the milk crate, right?
We got the milk crate. We outside like the Black Hebrews, man, in New York somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, but they got Oprah.
Mm-hmm.
We on YouTube. They got Steven Spielberg. They're in the academy.
Right.
We got blog sites. Oh, no. We don't even have we starting to get blog sites, right? But what do we have?
Free blogs at that, yeah.
Like, I'm talking about like Facebook pages or something like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, what do we have in order to articulate our viewpoint? And this is the issue. The issue is they have unabated been able to utilize white spaces in order to proliferate their views about black men without any retort whatsoever. And it is white spaces. Yes. And the white people are basically amplifying their voices for a political, strategy to keep us bifurcated.
Right.
Now, it is the case that black men do some fucked up things. We do. That's just the truth. But so do black women.
Look,
but the point is, they got the system working in their behalf. We have nothing. Like, a black man recently called the police on his wife who had a knife to his neck. The police came into the house and shot and killed his ass dead. Come on, man.
Look, it took her to the hospital only to find out that she ain't had nothing wrong with her. So look how far it went. The police got there, shot him, put her in the ambulance, took her to the hospital, and found out wasn't nothing wrong. She didn't even have not a cut, not a scrape, nothing. But she made it all the way to the hospital. He left his house in a body bag before they found out she ain't had nothing wrong with her physically. And I want to say the other thing to your analogy, the milk crate versus Oprah and the platform they got. This is how jacked up the game is. They are actually as angry with us on the milk crate as if we've said something on CNN. They're bringing the rage at brothers who are standing on fucking milk crates, and they're angry at us.
That's this is what you call censorship.
Yeah.
And they're using corporate America, and they're using academia, and they're using a space that white women created in order to do this, because they wouldn't be able to do it on their own. Right? Now, Ishmael Reed already discussed the ways in which Miss Magazine was doing this, right? Which he called, capitalist, imperialist, or whatever. You can call it socialist if you want to, like Marxist thinking. But the idea is that you got big business. Like, do you trust these big CEO, fat cat, white dudes, man? And these white women that's their wives and shit, like, doing all of this? Like, if you lionize these people and think that, just because they're in the positions that they're in, that somehow, they're morally, superior or superlative to you, then you not really thinking straight, man. I don't trust these people for 1 second. I don't trust any. I can say that I have a profound respect for the CEO of Netflix for not, basically capitulating to the censorship from, all of these woke mobs that came at them. But most companies would capitulate. They'll say, oh, well, this doesn't fit in line with our standards. Even YouTube does this, bruh. You know what I'm saying? I mean, they basically said, okay, you won't get revenue if you publish material like this.
But
But why are these my question is, why are these corporations in the business of not legislating but commercializing morality? This is highly immoral. It's the commercialization of morality and ethos, and it's wrong. It's flat out is wrong. but it's a roundabout way of censoring and censuring people. That's why I hate cancel culture. I hate it, bro.
Well, what I'm looking at when I look at, say, black couples, look at the black relationship in regard to everything we're talking about. One of the difficulties black men have is that, one, you're finding very small populations of black women who seem to be willing to challenge other black women about these very things. That's one of the problems, because it definitely promotes distrust, because we want to say, well, I know, you hear this all the time. Well, I know women that do this. I know a woman that does that. And that's great. But part of the problem is you don't see very many. So a lot of this kind of misandry goes unchecked, be it in families or be it in media. It goes unchecked. But when you do see black women that do speak out about it, they get attacked by other black women. There's a sister that just posted on Twitter today about what's the little cookie shop that the rapper got killed at? What's his name?
Young Dolph. Young
Dolph.
Shout out to Young Dolph. R.I.P. Young Dolph, man. Look, you can say what you want to about Young Dolph. Go ahead.
But wait, I'm just saying the cookie shop that he was at when he got killed, they had to close up shop. But and the sister on Twitter was pointing out how I guess the way it was being discussed was that it was some kind of black woman owned facility, even though the man has been there since the beginning, and he held Dolph's hand when Dolph was dying, and somehow there was an erasure of his very existence in the discussion about the shop. You know what I'm saying? And she got attacked by other black women for pointing out that this man co-owned the facility. And I'm just saying, part of the problem we deal with is that there seem to be very few black women willing to stand up to other black women, or the culture of misandry that goes on with black women. And even when those do, they get attacked by other sisters. This promotes for us a serious question about how much we can actually trust and build when that's the dynamic going on.
Yeah, and look, like I said before, what they've done is they've created a slick way to basically, normalize misandry. Misandry is normalized now. It just is what it is. And so, hey, all I can say is they expect for us to be hermeneutically challenged. And that's just a fancy way of saying we can't interpret what it is that they're actually doing. Like, if you won't call out misandry, if you saying that black men are evil ontologically, along with the same kind of rhetoric that was spewed forth by Susan Brown Miller, who was an ardent black male hater, like many of them are, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm just going to keep it 100. Don't want to see us fly. If you begin to develop the same kind of sentiments as these people, then you basically heading to destruction, bro. But anyway, man, shout out to Young Dolph.
Keep it real with your dog no matter what. Same bitch decline, she love you, she'll set you up.
Shout out to Young Dolph, man. Rest in peace, man. I know you wasn't, squeaky clean, in your life and times. But, hey, the dude made some dope music, whether you agree with it or not, the messaging. He was a talented guy, and I'm pretty sure he had family and friends, And, we got to stop killing each other, bro. We do. That's real, though. We do have to stop that, man. You know what I'm saying? We got to find other ways to handle our conflicts. You feel me? We got to, bro. We got to find a way to be able to settle our differences. Other than, by going and getting a gun or saying, I'm going to beat your ass. Like, we can do better than that. But again, though, it ain't like white men ain't never done it either. You ever heard of the duel to the death?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. So, let me keep pushing with this dude, man, because he hit the nail on the head to me. You know what I'm saying? It's like we need balance in this, and we don't have balance. And it's white people in academia and these corporations that are preventing the balance from actually happening.
That the black feminist can get published if she criticized the black male, but the black male cannot get published if he criticized the black female.
Well, I'd be guessing because I'm not a writer who's going to a publisher to try to get something published.
No, that's not what you just said.
Well, I kind of get the feeling that it's a little bit more difficult if you're a black male trying to get something published. I think it's in vogue now to attack black males.
And when I started teaching black women writers in 1970,
I don't want to hear what she got to say for real no more. But go ahead, bro. I know you got something to say about that.
Ah, man, it was that needed a bomb unto itself. I mean, basically, one of the reasons that black male studies is still in development is that you could not, for many brothers who wanted to write on this, it was difficult as hell, and still is, to actually get published. You actually, in many ways, you have to code switch in order to get published as far as this, and even then, it's not likely. And don't get me started on actually trying to get hired somewhere, being critical of feminism. I mean, at the end of the day, you're going to find this to be extremely difficult. And that speaks to what you were talking about earlier in terms of the censoring that goes on. The censoring is so institutionally ensconced, it's rooted in the very positions that are available that you go up for, or the very lack of existence of a black male studies department in the United States. All of this is so well structured that you actually have to slip through the fences, the post, just to get through, if that.
Man, they got white women teaching philosophy of race and stuff like that, bro. I'm just
they got white people teaching black studies and Africana studies. Whole programs of nothing but white folk teaching in there.
Bruh.
This is ridiculous.
I went to an all-black college, man, in 89. And, I graduated in 93. Bruh. Real talk, man. Most of the professors I had were white, bro. I'm just keeping it 100. All black college, bro.
Mm-hmm.
You feel me? Mm. So you ain't gotta,
Damn.
It's crazy, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like, just think about that for a minute. I wish I had special ed. Think about it. Think about it. You got to think about that, bro.
Wow.
It's just, it is what it is, man. All black college, you got white professors teaching all black kids, man. You know what I'm saying?
At colleges where black male students are damn near an endangered species.
Bro, the ratio was 8-1 when I went to Xavier, man. And that was 89, bro. 8-1, bro. 8 women to 1 dude, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, that was just how it was, bro. And you got to think, man, like what was going on then? And then, even if you are successful, man, they got traps and pitfalls for you to fall when you climb. They got traps and pitfalls everywhere, bro. So it is what it is, man. Let me keep pushing, man. I don't really, I will listen to her, but it's if you have a viewpoint about the world, and all you can do is to think about one identity group, and you can't see the larger picture. And that, I get it. I understand it to a certain extent. I get it, but it's become so pronounced, and it's become so abstract, and it's become so detached from reality that it's actually useless. They're not even able to accomplish their own objectives. For the vast majority of women, they're just creating tokenism, for themselves. And this is too much, bro. Julius Ferguson say, "Nola, baby, 95, bro. I hear you, little Woody." 95. Let me keep pushing.
One of the first courses in the country on black women's literature. Half the books that I needed to use, Their Eyes Were Watching God and Petries' Street, etc., they were consistently out of print. I never knew, I never knew, what I would be able to use semester to semester until, I walked into the classroom and I had the notes from the bookstore say, all of these are out of print, change your syllabus midstream. And the thing is that, like, the situation that we see now of black women writers getting some visibility, that's a very new situation. That's a situation of, like, say, the last 5 or 6 years. And a lot of the books have been done by independent presses and also by university presses.
Zora Hurston had enough difficulty alive than for the feminists to drag her up and make her into a symbol. And Zora Hurston's Their Eyes Watching God, which was in print in the 1960s, incidentally. By
but it went out of print in the early 70s.
The introduction was written by the late Larry Neal.
Right, I remember that edition. But the thing is, I'm saying in the early 70s, it was not
Zora Hurston was not a joiner. She was an individualist. She wrote a lot of essays about leave me alone, I'm in my thing, and I don't join any groups, anything like that. They made this woman into some kind of feminist symbol, cynically made her into a feminist symbol, and in Their Eyes Were Watching God, the women can just be just as cruel as the men. And I think that's more closer to human reality than these things where these positions where you say the men are all evil and the women are all good.
But the thing the cruelty of human beings was not what was at issue in that novel. What was at issue in that novel was the main character, Janie Crawford, going to have any autonomy. That's what was at issue in the novel, and that was a major focus of the novel. So the meanness, so the...
Wait, no. I'm just going, it's a brief statement. You can continue it after that if you want to. All I'm going to say, she clarified from the feminist standpoint what the book was about. What she didn't talk about is the degree to which Janie and others actually objectified their own men in the goddamn story as well. Each of those men was nothing more than a platform for her to talk about herself. She objectified each one of them. I did a review of this on my show months ago. It's not, Reed is correct. It's not just a unilateral analysis. There's a lot of nuance to that. And at the end of the day, Zora Neale Hurston was not a contemporary Black feminist. She was doing her thing in her own way, but the books were problematic on a number of levels in terms of men and women's representations. So her analysis is one-dimensional, but she completely doesn't acknowledge the objectification of men in the story either. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Because you can't objectify men. Because men are objects.
Exactly.
Just is what it is. Women in the mid '80s killed more Black women killed more Black men than Black men killed Black women. Silence. Mm-hmm. Black men are basically called evil by some writer. Oh, she's my friend. She's a friend. Like, I mean, which, that's your friend. I understand you don't want to, tuck your tail and not be supportive of your friend, but you can at least tell your friend the truth. Like, some of the stuff you're doing, is a little overboard. Like,
but when he laid out that statistic about Black women killing Black men, prior to that, she was talking about from kind of an emotional presentation about the vulnerability of women in New York and other places, walking the streets and being victimized and so on and so forth. And then he said, actually, there were more Black men attacked and killed than Black women. The interesting part was there was no acknowledgement of what Black men go through in that regard. And I don't think we have one now. Because even to this day, when Black men say that that my girlfriend attacked me or my mother or whatever, we don't have an image of what that means. And hell, other Black men will laugh and chide him. Some will laugh at him. Others will say he wasn't man enough. Others will say he should have done X, Y, and Z. But we don't have an image. You know what I mean? After the 1970s, when you started to get these films that highlighted what sexual assault and rape was, you had an image in your head when somebody said the R word. I don't want to, mess with your show's, numbers. But when you said certain words like sexual assault or whatever, you had an image in your head of a vulnerable woman being exploited. Hell, even if you talked about slavery, once you had roots, the country had a national imagination, a national image as to what slavery looked like. And roots didn't reflect the entirety of slavery. It reflected one family's history with it. But the country had a national idea about slavery because we saw that image. We have still not seen, outside of maybe Antoine Fisher, right, what it actually looks like for Black men to experience vulnerability in ways that translate so people can actually understand it and empathize with it. We haven't seen it. So even Black men will chide brothers who've been exploited or abused in a particular way because we don't have a national image or narrative that fits that experience and explains it in a humanistic way.
And that's why that brother said, man, I don't believe that, Black men will have the same opportunity to express their viewpoints and to push their writing through and their narratives through that these other people have. And it's largely because, they're able to ride the coattails of white feminism. And, because white feminists are connected to white patriarchy anyway, although they say they want to smash it, which is a lie, because they could have smashed it a long time ago. Man. You are the ones that give birth to the patriarchs, for real. Let's keep it 100. You give birth to them. So if you really wanted to smash the patriarchy, you could smash it out at its inception. I'm just keeping it 100. Now you can, man. I know that's going a little far, but hey, it's the truth. You know what I'm saying? it's the truth. Like if you want to stop patriarchy, you the first teacher of these kids. Like real talk. You want to get rid of the patriarchy and the so-called, the white ascendancy of males or whatever. Hey, you could stop it because you're the first teachers. But y'all teach them this crazy. White women teach white men this stuff. White boys this stuff, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, just keep it 100, man. We just got to keep it real, bro. So let me keep pushing, man, because we almost at the we passed the 2 hour 30-minute mark.
Meanness of individuals,
Miss Smith, what do you see? What is at stake between black men and black women?
I think the future of the race, probably. I think this is a very serious this is not the way to be having this dialogue, on national TV, in a debate format. But the thing is that it's a very serious situation, that is coming to light because of the work of black women and black feminists. We're saying, look, there's something wrong here. When I was growing up in the 1950s and reading the black newspaper in Cleveland, Ohio, I would read about almost every week a black woman being murdered. And the thing is, like, I thought, my God, I'm going to be 20 in the 1960s. Is this what, for me? Okay. And the thing is that finally, instead of pretending as if that's not happening, we say, hey, it's happening. We want to change it. You said you were changing. Okay. Like, the only way change is going to happen is by articulating what needs to happen.
We all should change. There's enough opportunity for everybody to change. But I think you look at statistics, the chances of being murdered if you are a black woman is 1 in 181.
Right.
The chance of being murdered if you're a black man is 1 in 21.
Right.
So we have an epidemic. We have an epidemic.
God damn it.
Where everybody is murdering us. We're murdering each other. The whites are murdering us. The women are murdering us. And I think if we could turn ourselves into whooping cranes, maybe there'd be some sympathy for us as an extinct species, or near extinct species.
Well, the thing is, I'm not for the murder of black men because I'm a black person.
Okay, but you seem to portray it as being a one-sided thing.
It's not one-sided, but there is by definition a violence against women, phenomenon, not just in this country but globally.
Okay.
There is something called violence against women. It takes many forms, and that's what I think
back to the point
about
color. Steven Spielberg did say that the color purple phenomena, which is, I guess they're going to have color purple T-shirts and things, and a color purple World's Fair, was begun by white women. He said the appeal of that movie was for white women. And that he wanted to broaden the appeal. And so I say the editing and publishing industry is controlled by white women. And if you're a black woman, it's easy to get published nowadays.
And speaking of editing, we're out of time. And thank our guests, ladies and gentlemen.
Look at Tony like, man. I just thought that was fire, man. I thought that was dope, and I wanted to share with the brothers, man, in the manosphere. You know what I'm saying? I wanted them to be able to have a gander at that. I'll probably end up posting it, on my stuff. I'll give it to you. You can post it on yours. You know what I'm saying? I mean, because the brothers need to see this, man.
Yeah, for real.
They need to see that, man, and have that at their disposal. And
there was a couple things she said at the end. I just wanted to, just quickly, pin. She talked about how she didn't think it was a good format to have it being framed on national television as a debate. And as much as I can appreciate an aspect of what she said, how the hell do you have the color purple out and expect it not to be a debate? See, the reason it's a debate is how egregious black men have been represented by certain pockets of black women at that time. So for her to turn around and say it shouldn't have been framed as a debate was disingenuous, because she knows, and he pointed out well, how completely disrespectful that presentation about black men was. So one, that to me was part of my issue when she kind of dropped that. Second, when she started talking about, she started kind of patting him on his head, talking about, well, yeah, you talked about you changed. And he said, well, there's room enough for everybody to change. Y'all need to change too. She quickly sidestepped all of that and started talking about violence against women, even though he laid out the statistics on how many black men die versus black women from a variety of sources. She completely sidestepped all of that to invoke violence against women as a phrase. No statistics, no data, nothing. She just offered the term in response to him laying out the actual stats on black male and black female death. And that's part and parcel what I'm pissed off about. How do you
They don't care about our deaths. They only care about their own. Like, you don't care. They don't care about their sons, their brothers, their fathers, their uncles, their nephews. They only care about their daughters, their mothers, their sisters, their nieces, and their aunties. They don't care about, the male half of the population. But they do care about what they're doing wrong. But that's about it. The beginning and ending of what they care about in relation to us is the wrong we do, not the right we do. Because I've never heard one of them extol our virtues. I've never heard any of them, give honor and glory other than, to those people who just basically are sycophants, to whatever it is that they espouse. So, at the end of the day, bro, it is what it is, man. It's just, it's a hurtful thing, man, to live through life and to, know that you got some people, man, who've cozied up to, the enemy of black folks, man, in order to, get their own, their own little piece of the pie, man, and their little trinkets and baubles, bro. It's a hurtful thing, man. To know that this is all, predicated on, emotion and, ideology and political intrigues by white chicks, man. It's a hurtful thing, bro. So it is what it is, man. It is what it is, bro. But man, I mean, you got any last thoughts you want to wrap up about this, man? I know we've been on for quite a bit of time, and this was great though. I thought it was dope. I'm glad that you were able to be here tonight, man, and to chop it up with me about this. Any last thoughts, man, you want to share about this?
Not really, man. Other than I just want to thank you for having me up. I want to thank you for sharing it with me, man, because Gigi will tell you, man, when we found it, because he found a clip. And so we were trying to find the full thing. And when we found it and we watched it, we were just in there jumping out of our chairs, man. So I appreciate you letting me come up to deal with it with you.
Hey, man, I appreciate you, hey, man, chopping it up with me. But it just goes to show that these issues aren't new, that these attitudes aren't new. But now, this disposition from these thinkers, they just basically have blossomed and grown. Like they have the microphone now, and
yeah, they do.
And
and the issues that matter, though, even though this ain't new, they've gotten worse. The out of wedlock birth rate worse. The marriage rate worse. Incarceration rate worse. You know what I'm saying? From suicide to violence in the community. The issues we talk about now have gotten worse since 1986. And yet, you got a certain population that's been pedestalized that much more. Given jobs, given a degree of prestige, so on and so forth.
Yeah, and they doubling down on it. They like it. So it is what it is, man. We can't grow together. We have to, it would be ideal if we could grow together, but it seems like we're at an impasse with these people, man. So anyway, man, thanks for joining tonight, man. I thought it was informative. I thought it would, be entertaining as well as, instructive. So, brother, thank you for coming with me, man, and doing this.
Thanks a lot.
Man, we got to, chop it up again sometime soon, man. But I'm going to show you the next time that you come, or, anybody who, comes to watch. I'm going to show you what academicians are saying about the manosphere, because they are weighing in. They have something to say about it. So I just want you to know what they have to say. So that's probably be the next show I do. And along with many others, man. So yeah, that way. So anyway, man, till next time, y'all.
right.
I'll catch y'all on the flip side of the pillow, man. On the cool side of the pillow, man.
All right. Peace, y'all.
Peace, man. There it is.